everyone, and welcome back to another episode of OHKO, a Pokemon VGC podcast. Sacramento is all done. So it's fine. But we are here with someone who was in attendance, Joseph Ugarte, finalist at the event. But first off, we'll start with, the classic of the classic questions. How are we all doing today?
I'm doing pretty okay. Chilling.
Doing well. Wishing everybody in America a happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully you're not actually listening to this as it goes up. You're spending time with some loved ones and families, and you listen to it a little later on in the day, maybe during one of the football games after Turkey. But it's all the Americans, happy Thanksgiving.
Is this a Thanksgiving episode?
It's technically going up. Being uploaded the day of Thanksgiving,
You know what I think is like the perfect way to spend a Thanksgiving? All the family together listening to the podcast. I just gotta say, as the Canadian though, it's not a time for thanks for me. Before we get started, you guys' day is great. Mine started off on tragedy. Every morning, I drink my little protein from my protein bottle, and it's all great. Has one of those little metal balls in there to stir the stuff up, all good. And I found mold in it, and it was dreadful. After I had drank my whole protein thing, by the way.
Oh, that's the worst part.
Oh, no, why would you say that?
Oh. This is new flavor.
I wouldn't ruin my day if I didn't drink it, right? If I just found it beforehand, it's just like a little inconvenience. But no, I drank it, and wondering how many days that I've been drinking that. So that's cool. Now I have chunky protein, but I no longer drinking mold, so that's fantastic. But I'm glad you guys
Batman cannot beat that out of me. I'm not gonna lie.
What? That I didn't that it's a poor design that you can't fully clean the I don't know. I wash it every day, so I don't know, but it's okay. I think
what I was thinking of today, especially once we had Joe confirmed to come on to the podcast, was if we flash back to literally a year ago. You two welcomed me into your family for Thanksgiving because my family was on a cruise while we were in Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
So here we are a year later, and we're still celebrating. We're still thankful together while separated.
Oh my goodness! Last Thanksgiving, it was so funny. So
it was a banger. It was a great time.
Joe's family, so nice. So outgoing. You think about those big family get-togethers where you have all the crazy aunts and uncles and everyone in the business, that's exactly it. And then Joe Brown comes along and they're welcoming right in, telling him these stories, and it was the funniest thing. I was sitting in the living room and I just see his aunt has him cornered in the kitchen telling him these stories. That's very much so maybe shouldn't be telling a friend that's being brought to the family, but it was really funny though.
No, but we weren't friends. We were family that day. You know what I'm saying? And I also partially grew up in some parts in Jersey City, so I was familiar with the area, and I'm very thankful that you guys welcomed me into your suburbs. We watched that that Netflix the real life version of Squid Games, remember?
Oh yeah, right. The
competition.
Right, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was good.
Yep. No, it's pretty sick. No, I remember it was good. Thanksgiving with the fam is always good. Unfortunately, I will not be in attendance with that side of the family this year, as I am going, to Germany. So it is okay.
Yeah, this one does not stop on the worldwide journey to play Pokemon, but we'll bring it back to last weekend, as you went straight from Brazil to New York to then spend a day there to go right back out to Sacramento. Second place finish. So first off, gotta talk about this, because maybe not everyone knows, but you weren't originally planning on going to that event. Even when you registered, we were talking about it, you're yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go. It's kind of far. There's other stuff, and then all of a sudden, from not going to going and getting second place, how does that feel?
I mean, it feels good. I mean, I kind of talked about it a little bit on the interview when Gabby was interviewing me, and it was kind of I wasn't really feeling it, but then I kind of thought about damn, Marco's really good. He's going to everything. He's top cutting stuff. I was I want to do that, So I was I think the LAIC performance wasn't exactly a good showcase of the team. And I know that on day 2, I could have played a bit better. So I was let's give it another run. Like, I'd rather play an extra event, and then like if I'm tired, then like I take a break after, then like be home and then be like, oh man, I wish I was there playing. So I think it was the right call to end up going, and I'm happy I did. So
yeah, I mean, even like, because we were talking about it, like you're still in Brazil and you're like, I don't think I'm going to Sacramento. And then you see Marco win, and you're still like, I don't think I'm going to Sacramento. And I was just like, just decide when you get home. And then you get home and you're like, I'm going to Sacramento, baby. Yep. Let's go. So hey, it worked.
I need to mentally prepare for like a 2-hour flight to Chicago. And like here you are, you're like Brazil to New York to Sacramento. Like I don't know, was that was New York to Sacramento a straight shot, or did you have a layover anywhere?
No, so there's a funny story with this. So I was on call with Sierra and a couple of other friends in like a Discord call or whatever. And my original flight out was like a 6 a.m. on like Friday to go to like Sacramento. And it was a transfer flight. Every single flight from New York to Sacramento that was like reasonable for me was like a connection.
Yep.
But I was just like really not feeling it. It was like 1 a.m. I was in bed on the Discord call. Like I hadn't packed yet. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like not doing this. I was like, I'm just moving this flight. And like it would like cost no money to move it. So I moved it to like 4:40 p.m. So, at first, you might look at it and be like, wow, Joe, you're a genius. You get more sleep. That's what I thought too, But then I'm on the first leg of the flight. I get to Salt Lake City and my flight to Sacramento gets delayed like twice. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I was like, this is the last flight to Sacramento within a reasonable time frame. So I'm like, if I don't get to like go today and I like get there tomorrow, like I'm getting there like round 2 with like a lost round 1, basically, right? So I remember I'm just sitting in the airport. I'm like, man, I really hope this works out. And then I end up getting on the flight and I get to the airport, right? I get out, like whatever, and I get my Uber. And my Uber driver, it's already like 1 a.m. at this point or whatever. And then my Uber driver that like picks me up, right? He starts driving me. And then I look at his battery and I'm like, dude, you have an electric car. Isn't it on like 5%? He's like, oh, I didn't realize. So... So then we're sitting there like obviously like in this ride or whatever, and he's like sweating, like he's like, oh man, I hope we can make it, like whatever, because like obviously we're on the freeway with like a electric vehicle that's on like 2%, and I'm like, oh, we're definitely not making it. Like I'm about to get stranded on the freeway for the next like 2 hours. But somehow, even though his car hits 0%, for the next 10 minutes, he still is driving me to the Airbnb that I'm at. And I end up getting there at like 1:30, like 1:40 or whatever. And I don't know if the guy made it to the charging station. I hope he did. Like he said it was a rental too. So like, I don't know like how that works, but like, yeah, I don't know if he made it to the charging station, but I made it to the Airbnb and then I quickly kind of just went to bed as soon as possible. But like, yeah, it was a pretty like long trip, and like, yeah, I didn't get too much downtime for sure.
That's crazy.
At least you made it. I really hope that he made it. Like,
moral of the story is you would have already been in Sacramento for many hours if you just kept your.
Yes, I would have been there 12 hours and a half before at like 1:30 a.m. So it's okay. It worked out.
I mean, it worked. Going into the event, I mean, this season's been pretty strong for you already, because starting off at, I believe it was Louisville, right? You get into second place, like, getting these results, you got another second place. Like, how do you feel then just about the season so far that you've had? Because obviously there aren't quite wins, but like, that's still a very impressive level of consistency.
Well, it's hard to complain, right? Like, obviously, I mean, once you make 2 finals, you're always like, oh, I would really like to like win, like, of course, you'd like to get the final win. But in the end, it's all kind of arbitrary, right? Because like, I think like my goals, I kind of talk about this on stream a little bit. Like my goals have shifted a lot to where like, I want to be consistent across the board, and where I really want to try and get those wins are on the international and like world stage, and anything else is like bonus. So like, I mean, now that I've gotten like 2 regional finals, I'm like, okay, maybe the third one I'd like to win, but like it's still like good. I'm still happy with it, and I it's weird. Like usually after the finals, when I lost like in previous seasons, I used to get like really down on myself and like really upset, and like, versus Andrew, I was okay. I was still a little disappointed because I thought I could have played better. Like that one, I just genuinely felt like there were things I could have done better. And versus Carson, I definitely got unlucky in game 3, but I also still feel like there were some things I could have done better. And like, oddly enough, it made me feel like more okay with it, because it's like, like, did I play well and would I have deserved the win? Like, had I gotten 100%, right? But like, did I play perfectly to where like there was no question that like, I couldn't have played better? Like, I don't think so either, right? Like, I made some really good plays to stay in the game when I spittered my own Jumpluff game too. Like, there were some really good like plays there that I think I made, but there's always like better. You can always do like better, and I think for me, my goal is just to like really improve and just keep doing better. So,
I think to me the like, because I wasn't able to watch most of Sacramento as it was happening because I was commentating a League of Legends event at the same time, but I had two tabs. Like, so like on one side I had all the league stuff, and I kept going back to Sacramento and like checking the standings and seeing you doing well and like making it to cut and winning. And I was like, it's something about the Pacific time zone, man. Like, because it wasn't Portland, but it was still PST out there, and I was if he wins Sacramento, and he's gonna be like bummed that it's not a Portland win, but it's still a West Coast win. So like it keeps the meme alive. Like, so I was like, as I was commentating, I had like between games, I would like flip over to this to the Twitch stream, and I told this to Sierra when she was streaming, that I was watching game 3, kind of just going back and forth doing both, and as soon as Overheat missed, I just turned the stream off and went back to League. It's like, well, I know what's gonna happen now.
Yeah.
Don't worry, the only thing you missed was 2 more Overheat misses. Like, it was crazy. Before we quite get into the finals itself, though, I want to talk about like, we talked about like the consistency in your season starting to sound a little Riley Factura there, except when we look at your team, which is anything but. I mean, you look at the team across the board, if people watched LAIC, they'd be reminiscent of Marco Silva's team, of course, seeing elements like the Torkoal and the Jumpluff. You've been playing like Torkoal Jumpluff for a while. You're like the Torkoal Jumpluff guy. I mean, even before that, you were the Sleep Powder son of some sort guy. And then it's interesting because I don't really feel like beyond Marco, the team has necessarily taken off too crazy much. It's kind of like a thing that only you really do, at least to like the standard, and you're still bringing it to events and still doing well. Like, how are you thinking about it faring like in this meta, specifically too into Sacramento, to still where you feel fine bringing such an inconsistent team in other ways?
Well, it's interesting because like I think it's very deceptive sometimes because like obviously, so like in the Louisville stream appearances, right, like Jumpluff just got instantly destroyed like multiple games and just like disappeared, right? And then like in this tournament, like this tournament stream, like you see Jumpluff like landing all of his powders, doing a lot of stuff, right? So very much the two extremes of like how the Pokemon can function, right? And I felt like the thing is like what makes a team consistent in the face of an inconsistent field is people tend to disrespect Sun in their team building because it's something that requires so many resources to deal with, right? So like, I mean, my match versus Underhill in top 16, like as like obviously a lot of the top players and they're joking for a lot of it. Like I know Underhill, he doesn't really care. Like I talked to him after and like because you have to play how you have to play, right? But like the team he brought disrespected Sun. Like if you bring a team that like can get Sleep Powder across the board except for 2 Pokemon, and the 2 Pokemon that can are weak to Typhlosion and King Gambit, right? Like it's pretty much setting yourself up to like if you pull that matchup, it's going to be bad unless your opponent misses multiple Sleep Powders, right? And what I wish Stream had got in the show, not that I'm saying I wish I would have missed. I'm always down for like a clean game of like landing my Sleep Powders and then no one wakes up. That's fine. But actually in my first set against Underhill, game 2 was pretty lucky. I'm not gonna lie. Like that, like I didn't like it wasn't lucky as in like I lucked him out of a win state he already had. It was just from turn 1, like he missed Scale Shot, he missed Snarl, then he got encored into Snarls. My King Gambit came in, like it was just over in like 3 turns. But like in our game 1, I missed Sleep Powder turn 1, and I was actually able to play so well that I brought it back to a winning position without having to click Sleep Powder again. So basically, like that's the side of the team that like the stream obviously didn't get to fully show, right? Like maybe had I missed Sleep Powder on Alex in the first game or the second game of our stream set, you would have gotten to see like me having to play around like, oh, what if I miss Sleep Powder, right? But when it just connects like that on stream and you're like, oh, okay, 2 turn sleep, like 3 turn sleep, like okay, I guess I just win. Like you're gonna take it, you know what I mean? Like of course. And I think that was like the thing on stream that like a lot of people obviously they see all the Sleep Powders are connecting, all this stuff, right? And like it gives you a small glimpse into like what the entire team looks like across the tournament. And I think the reason why the team is consistent for me is because I'm so used to playing with those risks and understanding like when you need to take a sleep powder risk versus not, and how do you play around situations in which you're going for sleep powder. Like, I try not to click sleep powder in situations where I'm going to lose the game if it doesn't land, unless it's absolutely necessary, right? And I think like having that kind of restraint is important, because there are people who will play these kind of teams and be like, oh, sleep powder target, boom, sleep powder target, boom, and then they miss and they lose, you know? So
Guilty.
I think to me with like the sleep turns, because where I struggle as a player, because obviously I've used Amoonguss a million times, right? Amoonguss is one of the best VGC Pokemon of all time, and like you go for the consistent spore, right? It's going to land, but then the question is like, how many turns of sleep do you get? Like, you have that first guaranteed turn, but then it's like, okay, well, on this turn too, like, do I click Swords Dance? And because my best outcome is I get set up and they get a second turn of sleep, but then if they don't get the sleep, like, I think that's the uncertainty for me more than the 75% accuracy on sleep powder. Is like, a lot of times, and your playstyle is obviously different, but like, you don't just have to rely on landing sleep, but you have to rely on getting multiple turns or max sleep turns or something to have like a truly advantageous position off of the sleep, if you understand what I'm saying. It's like, how do you handle those situations where it's like, not only do I need to land 75% accurate move, but like I also need 3 turns of sleep on this Pokemon, or he's just going to wake up and destroy me.
Well, I think a good player is not going to have to rely on like 3 turns of sleep to win the game, right? Like, the most of the plans that I have around like how, you know, obviously I'm doing with the team, like I'm making plays that mitigate like the turn 1 sleeps, right? So like, so yes, is it contingent on landing like the first sleep? Potentially, right? It depends on the matchup, of course, but like, you should never be relying on a game plan where it takes like 3 sleeps to win the game, unless it's like a really terrible matchup, right? Like, it has to be horrible and you have to have no other ways to play the matchup to like have to rely on that, right? So I think like when people look at the team, they're like, oh, so he's like clicking sleep powder like turn 1, like that's his only game plan, like whatever. Like, it's not important for the 3 turn sleeps to happen. What's really important is like that, like, or at least the way you're supposed to play the team is that first turn sleep is supposed to be the most impactful sleep of the game, because it's giving you like breathing room to set up your threats, right? While you're doing that, like in reality, right? Like clicking sleep powder and overheat, bringing in a threat is like the perfect turn. And even if they wake up the next turn, you still got value because you got in your threat safely protected in that turn, right? So that's where I think that maybe some people, when they look at it, they're like, oh, you got to click sleep powder, and if you don't connect, you like lose. And I think like there's definitely a lot more nuance to it sometimes, but that's hard to see, because like obviously if you're not playing the team actively, you look on stream, you see sleep powder come out, sleep something for 3 turns, you're like, oh, okay, like that was the plan the whole time, you know? So
I mean, the sleep powders, from what we got to see on the broadcast, the sleep powders were connected. The sleep powders weren't an issue. I want to start talking about the finals, because for whatever anyone can say for your luck throughout the tournament, however people feel about your luck in general, which is something I want to follow up on after, because that definitely has people split. The sleep powders went crazy early on. Overheat and this Torkoal let you down massively, and I want to talk about that, because I mean, you're talking about, okay, maybe you need this first sleep powder, but there are so many overheat misses in there. Higher accuracy than sleep powder, by the way. Like, was Torkoal, like, when you're looking at the inaccurate moves, like the biggest letdown of the tournament? And like, how are you feeling about like the finals just in general? Had maybe 1 or 2 of those connected?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say though, because like, to be honest, like Torkoal didn't miss a single overheat until like finals, so it's kind of like
just when it's most important.
Yeah,
right?
so it's like like obviously, like if you look at statistics, Torkoal was still performing over what it was supposed to land. It just happened to be that the 3 that it was supposed to miss all happened in one game, which is pretty crazy, right? That being said, though. Yeah, right. Like back to back to back. It was crazy. But like, for what it's worth, you know, I look back at the game 3 and like a lot of people say like, oh, Joe, you know, he like got unlucky. He missed 3 like overheats. And of course, like, could I have won the game anyways? I absolutely think I would have been in a good position had I connected the first one, right? I think the first one was honestly the biggest impact one, because after that, I was already playing from like behind with my momentum, and like this team is very contingent on like your first couple turns setting you up properly to get the rest of the game going, right? And because I was playing from behind, I was doing everything in my power to like get give myself a chance to win, right? But and like definitely the second overheat 2 would have been impactful. I think by the time the third one missed, it was already such a bad position that like it was really like kind of cope anyways to be like, oh yeah, like if he had connected the third one, maybe he could have won. Like, I think it was just kind of over anyways because it was just like so bad. But honestly, like I look back at the finals and a lot of people see like, oh, you know, had Joe not missed his overheats, like he could have won. What I see is like, yes, if I connected my overheats, I could have won, but I still didn't bring the strongest possible plan. So it's still kind of my fault. You know what I mean? Because I look at it and like Typhlosion did nothing in the matchup. In hindsight, I brought Typhlosion because in my planning, I was like, oh, okay, I'm conditioning Carson to disrespect the Typhlosion mode. You know, he's going to like not respect it. But in hindsight, like bringing it against the tools he had wasn't correct. So when I look at it, like the finals, like a lot of people see like, oh, Joe missed his overheats, like he got unlucky. And like definitely like there's some truth to that. But also I think like knowing myself and knowing the team, like I also didn't do my bring justice in game 3 to give myself the best statistical odds to win. So like when I look back at it, I'm like, okay, there's still things I could have done better, which makes me feel a bit better actually, because it makes me still feel like there's like things I can improve on. And it wasn't just like, oh, just because I missed, like I lost, you know? I think that's important. You have to, even when you get like really, really, really unlucky, you always have to look back at a game and be like, okay, I got unlucky, but could I have done something better on turn 1, 2, or 3 that would have set me up for a better position where the luck didn't matter? In the case of missing overheat turn 1, I was kind of in trouble, like regardless after that turn 1 miss, but still, like there were better things I could have brought in the back, right? So
yeah, I mean that's good reflection because I feel like the whole, oh well, if this had happened or I got crit or I missed this is like if you've ever competed at a regional, guys. After everybody's game, everybody gathers, and it's either I won my match, yippee, and then there is the other person that is I got crit, or they double protected, or I missed this, and like I feel like that seeing what you're doing wrong and like where you can change is a really important skill, like in that, and like knowing what you could have done because you can't control whether you know you get crit or not.
yeah, I mean, I think like it was funny because I talked to friends after rounds 2. I remember LASC too, especially, and they were like, "Oh man, like I got so unlucky," and I was like, "So you're telling me there's like not a single turn in 3 games that you could have played better?" And they're like, "Well, I lost game 2 because I got outplayed." I was like, "Bro." I was like, so then like, yeah, like obviously you got unlucky, of course. And like, you know, no one's going to say you didn't, but like, if you could have played, like, this is the way I think of it, right? Like, or the way I like try to think of it now, right? You're allowed in a best of 3 to lose 1 game to luck, right? So theoretically speaking, if you're playing at the, like you're at your peak, right? The best of your capabilities possible, you should be winning all 3 games, basically. Right. And you should only be dropping a game if you get unlucky, or the second game if you get unlucky again. Right. But like basically, like if you want to be a top player, like the best in the game, you have to be able to recover from like really hard to salvage situations. Right. Find like plays in certain situations that are trickier for you. Keep a you have to mentally be very collected, or like calm and collected in those situations. And also you have to be very objective with like, could I have done this better in this game, even though I got unlucky, right? Because like if I miss 3 overheats in an end game versus someone on like turn 5, right? But on turn 4, I could have made the play that locked up the win without me having to risk those overheats on turn 5. It's still my fault, right? Yeah. So that's the way I look at it, really.
To me, my favorite, like, not that I'm happy that you lost because I'm sad, but like the good outcome of it is every time we get the gif of Torkoal sinking in the water.
Yeah.
Because like I like to imagine some like, you know, Pokemon animator 20 years ago when they were making that episode of the anime, they're like, this isn't going to be big now, but don't worry. In 15 years, this is going to be a huge.
Should be a banger.
And every time Torkoal misses overheat, like we just get all of these gifs flooding of like just Torkoal sinking, and like it's just like it's funny to me that because of how long I've known you and like my association, like we have questions from some of our Discord members when we told them you were coming on, and like so there were multiple questions asking like, what's your favorite sleep powder user? What's your favorite sun abuser? Like, what's the most iconic to you? And like, I still to this day, I still associate you with Venusaur, and I still associate you with Groudon, right? The Venudon and Eveldon Venu strategies with Yveltal and stuff. But like now you've had so much success, especially on stream success with Torkoal and now Jumpluff specifically, that like, in your opinion, have Torkoal and Jumpluff superseded the Groudon Venusaur that we knew you before on, or do you still like when you need it the most, you would still rely on Groudon Venusaur?
Well, see, it's interesting, right? Because I think they're very much like different Pokemon, even in how they function, right? So when I look at Groudon Venusaur, right, like they're a pair that's very much like a high power level. Like Venusaur was great at the time because it pressured opposing Groudon, and then I look at like Torkoal and Jumpluff, and so in my opinion, right, I think Torkoal and Jumpluff to me are like more fun to play because it's just like a wackier pair of Pokemon. You know what I mean? Like the fast support Torkoal, the like Jumpluff clicking like Encore, like so, like it's just a fun like it's two really like Pokemon that you would like not really expect to be like super great, right? That just like work really well on this team, right? And I just think it's like really funny imagining like I don't know like a slow like turtle like or like sprinting to the finish line, you know what I mean? Or like just stuff like that. And I think Groudon Venusaur to me was like when I think of it is I think back a lot to like when I first got started in the game, a pair that I had a lot of like comfort with, right? And it's kind of hard to pick between basically where I'm going with this. It's kind of hard to pick between the two, right? Because they always say like never forget your roots, right? But also like sometimes you know you got to if you love something you got to let it go, you know what I mean? And like I feel like as of lately, like Jumpluff Torkoal has opened up like more avenues for me to play the game the way I like in Scarlet and Violet. But you know, you can never really forget, you know, your first time with Sleep Powder, you know. So
because like Venusaur is legal, you know, it's not like it's not in the Pokedex. You could use Venusaur. It's just
it's not the same anymore. It's not the same anymore.
Well, it doesn't have G-Max Vine Lash, you know.
Well, so like what used to make Venusaur, well, I think this is partially because of Scarlet and Violet. I know we talk a lot about like obviously like, you know, different Pokemon on here, like formats or whatever. Like Venusaur's speed tier back in Gen 7 was like perfect, and Gen 8 too, right? Was perfect for the time frame because of like the way like all the other Pokemon work. Like the speed tiers they hit, everything, like it just worked out well, right? But nowadays, like everything's so like stat buffed, like everything's so fast, everything has like a speed boosting move, every team has like Tailwind or some kind of speed control. Like Venusaur really struggles nowadays. Like, and Venusaur used to also be better when Groudon and Kyogre were like running every like running every format. But now like if you look at the restricted formats, right, like it's not even Groudon and Kyogre running the formats anymore. It's like Miraidon, Koraidon, like a ton of other new Pokemon. So I feel like honestly, do I still like Venusaur Groudon 100%? I think Torkoal and Jumpluff, you know, it's like the old classic vehicle versus like the new cool like, you know, shiny toy. So I feel like right now I'd probably be more biased towards Torkoal Jumpluff just because of how it works in Scarlet and Violet with Terra and everything else. But you know, if Groudon ever returns to greatness again, you know, they buff Precipice Blades to be 100% accurate. They make Venu a little faster. Like I'd be down, you know, maybe, who knows? Maybe I'll even use it in Regulation G and then we'll have this conversation again, you know?
I mean, hey, we'll see there. But then we'll take that and kind of go into like the next viewer question that we have here. This one's from B-Wing. Quote unquote, after seeing you use your Jumpluff Sun team so much, do you think it's more important to stick with one certain team and perfect that, or try different teams and see which one you vibe with the most for the long term? And I think that's especially interesting for you because we've seen obviously this Sun variation from you with Sleep Powder for a long time, but then like even like Portland, we got to see the Jumpluff Torkoal for the first time coming out from you, and then we've seen it pop up at random times. You'll be off of it for a little bit, and then you'll be back onto the team, and you always kind of like default back to it. So love to know then your take with that, with like sticking to a certain team versus kind of going outside of that.
I mean, the lame answer is it depends on context, but like I guess the me answer, right, would be I think for me, like where I end up using it is like when I feel like it has like strength and like utility in the metagame, right? So I've had strings of other teams I've really liked that haven't been Sun, right? Obviously the most notable appearances with like any team I've had is like always been with like some Sun team, right? Top 4 at the internationals were with Sun, right? Obviously back to back regional finals, the first 2 didn't, but then the win had Sun, right? And then here, 2-time finalists with Sun, right? So it's like there's clearly a trend of like what kind of teams work well for me when they're good, right? And I think it really depends on the format, right? Because sometimes you have to know when you need to like abandon ship on an archetype and when you need to stick with something. So like I think Regulation H and the power level that's at is very, very favorable for something like Torkoal, Jumpluff, like this style of team, right? But then you go back to Regulation E, for example, is like one I think of, right? And I remember in that format, like I was kind of jumping between a few teams, and then eventually I kind of settled on Riley's team, and I just kind of learned it. Like I picked it up, I just grinded a ton of games with it. And I even talked to him about it, like how he played it, how he approached things, and I ended up learning it so well that I could like, if not play it as well as him, play it almost at like the same level. But like I had my own different interpretations on how I was supposed to do things, right? So like even though me and Riley were playing the same team, I felt like the way I was playing that team was so vastly different than the way he was, right? And like I think back to like San Antonio top 8 against Z. Where Riley ended up losing to Z before, and I just played the matchup completely different and won very convincingly, just because the way I thought about the game and approached the game was very different. So I think it's about finding teams that kind of play into your strengths, and I think honestly, the kind of sleeper pick in Gen 9 that like I think plays into my strengths is King Gambit, because I think King Gambit's just a very good, like mind gamey, like super oppressive Pokemon on the field when it's positioned properly. And like because of that, I can play it really effectively with the skill set I have.
Yeah, I think King Gambit honestly is more of a like synonymous Pokemon to you. We kind of forget with all the Torkoal Jumpluff success of the last couple seasons, but like there was a good couple months stretch in Scarlet and Violet where it was you and Luca were like the 2 King Gambit whisperers. You know what I mean? And you were like pretty much like on the King Gambit train from the beginning of Scarlet and Violet, when before other people really started to figure out why it was such a popular Pokemon, and that stayed through now the 3rd year of the 3rd season of Scarlet and Violet. Like you're still using King Gambit, but you're not using. I guess you are still using some right because you have Garchomp.
Yeah.
So I guess you are still using like some older or more reliant strategies, like compared to like Sneasler, who came in the 2nd season, and like Ursaluna was from the DLC, and like some of these other threats that came in the game like much later on. Like you're still using some of the core Scarlet and Violet Pokemon like King Gambit pretty much on every team.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it too is when you're thinking about like, okay, I'm approaching, these different tournaments, like what plays into my strengths, right? You find Pokemon, or you find like certain approaches that like work well for you, right? And like I just think the way that you play with King Gambit is so much versatility in the format, right? Like it's a really strong Pokemon. It's incredibly good into the main mechanic in VGC, which is still Intimidate, right? And I think that because of that, it makes like the way I like to play the game, like I like to play very aggressively, right? And like it kind of helps me like it like makes that better, right? It makes that part of like my play style better because it's something that can punish it, right? And I think it sometimes you just have these like Pokemon or concepts that just work really well with you, and like you can utilize well, and you just have to find those kind of when you're like trying to get your footing in a format. Really, like sometimes it's good to just go back to basics. I'm really good with this one Pokemon, or I'm good with this concept. Like how can I incorporate that onto a team?
Yeah, I want to take this a point now. Start talking a little bit more about the regionals as itself. We've been talking about your team and some other things, but let me see if I'm sharing this right as we're trying out new features over here for any of our YouTube watchers. But looking back at your run in general, obviously we were talking about your loss versus Carson. As much as it would be nice to be here celebrating your win or celebrating the 2nd place spot, but looking over like the run in general and kind of like the meta, I think like the first thing that's interested me is like the amount of rain teams that you went up against. Like we talked about it last week that like West Coast always seems to be in line with rain. I actually predicted, so I did like Emilio Forbes is my prediction because I'm always going to bet on Emilio to take a regional if he's attending a regional, right? My backup if he wasn't going was Aaron Brock because I know Aaron Brock would be like a strong rain user. You actually knocked him out. So
Played him
my
twice
prediction,
in the tournament too. Yeah.
exactly. But we were talking about that like alongside the rain, which is then very more interesting for your team to thrive again or like be fine against it. So like I want to know what was kind of like the most difficult matchup for you or like most memorable going for the day. I see that you played against a Greninja as well.
Yeah, so that Greninja was really funny because like the guy basically, well, he was kind of like happy when we first started playing, and I think it's because like he like thought he had a good matchup, which I think he did probably. Like it was super bulky max speed taunt rain dance, like manual rain dance Greninja. So basically like what it would do is like if I switched in Torkoal, it would just rain dance and get the weather back, right? But like the problem is like honestly like I just read him a lot. Like I just like read exactly what he did on like both like turns and was able to win. And even after I won, I remember he was like, oh man, he's like, I had such a good matchup. And I was like, yeah, I guess, man. Like, you know, like, sorry, you know, like, and then like, that's it. Right. But like, it was an interesting team. And like, honestly, like, I didn't even really struggle with Rain at all. I just feel like the thing is it's like a double-edged sword, right? So you're using an archetype that's really consistent and good, and it lets you beat players that you're like better than. But as soon as you hit players that are really good and know how to play around rain, it gets really like you meet a lot more resistance, right? And out of all the rain teams, I think the one that probably was the closest was against Aaron Brock, just because he had some techs on his team that were a little bit different than like the regular ones. So he had Dragon Ursaluna instead of yeah, it was Dragon Ursaluna and Wide Guard Pelipper instead of the regular Tailwind Pelipper and Ghost Ursaluna. So, like, he was able to leverage that a bit better than, like, all my other opponents had. But, like, I played against some people that Rain team who had no clue what they were doing. Like, I remember there was someone who led Golden Go Sinistcha into, like, King Gambit Torkoal, and I was just like, oh, okay, like, this is fine. Like, I was like, I think my life is, like, super easy now. So, it kind of depends, right? And I felt like, honestly, the issue with most teams in the format right now is they're kind of meeting like this wall where it's like, where do we go from here? Right. And it's starting to get harder to make innovations on certain concepts, right? So like matchups are starting to become more concrete, right? There's obviously still room for meta adaptations, but like there's very like few big changes happening now. So like even Carson's team that won, right? I think I look at that and like honestly, it was a one-mon change from Oliver Escalin's team that got top 8 at LAIC. That one-mon change was impactful, right? But basically now we're seeing like smaller changes making bigger impacts on archetypes than like whole new teams that are being invented, right? And I think like that's something really important to notice is like it's less so nowadays like oh, you know, rain is really good, right? Like, but there's nowhere it can really go. Whereas, like, maybe there's a couple changes they can still make, but at this point, people kind of have their matchups figured out and like know how to approach certain archetypes if they're good, right? So, and rain is just an easy one for me. Like, I have so much experience with that matchup, and I said this on stream after beating Riley Factura using rain on stream. 2-0 like as convincingly as I did, like that for me confidence wise, whenever I play a rain matchup now, I'm like, if I could beat Riley playing rain and like he got rid of my Jumpluff like immediately, I look at these matchups, I'm like, this person is not Riley Factura. I'm like, I can play well and win this. So like it has done loads to like help my confidence for sure in the rain matchups. So
I think there's been like some other Pokemon on the rise, particularly on Carson's team, but like the big one is Dragonite, right? Where at LAIC, Dragonite became an absolutely massive Pokemon, like all over the place. Counters, gets the KO on the Sneasler through the Focus Sash and stuff. But then like also as a fairy, if you run into Terra Fairy, like then the other Dragonite can't hit you, and all these fun things. But another Pokemon is Talonflame, which is on Carson's winning team and Marcus Dion's third place team. I think Talonflame is kind of having a resurgence. And is it because of the speed? Because it's not like Dragonite is fast. He gets fast after the scale shot. He gets like kind of up to Talonflame speed. But if you think about it, like Talonflame super fast, flying type with access to really fast Tailwind. Jumpluff is a flying type with Chlorophyll has a really fast Tailwind, right? Like Whimsicott has really fast Tailwind. Like Is that coming back in the format? Is that a meta development that you've noticed, or is that just like, Carson's just really good? Like Talonflame's not coming back. It was just good on Carson's team.
I think it was just good on Carson's team. I mean, there's some other archetypes that can use Talonflame, but like I think the most important part when you look at Carson's team is like it's very much like a protect the president kind of team. There are other attackers, of course, right? But like you are playing like protect the Ursaluna a lot of the time, and notably Carson versus me, right? He leaned more into like Sneasler and DD Ensign, right? But even with that being factored in, right? Traditionally, looking at Carson's team, majority of his games were focused around protecting that Ursaluna, whether it was Electabuzz, enabling it with Electrowebs, Talonflame getting Tailwind up, or having, the Ensign kind of lowering stats around it. I think the key takeaway, I think, from Carson's team is that like Ursaluna Blood Moon is still an insanely good Pokemon with the right supports. And like that Indeedee Sneasler are such a good offensive pairing together that they can complement almost any like offensive core team. Like I think honestly, Indeedee Sneasler, like what this regional tells me when I look at it is that like the Psychic Seed Indeedee Sneasler like is super, super good. And it can be thrown on like a ton of meta teams and like give them more depth, in my opinion.
Which I hate on a personal level, because I just think it's annoying to go up against right from the get-go. That was annoying, but talking about the Blood Moon Ursaluna, as I figure out how to share my screen again, as I make sure we're all good here, I think this is quite interesting with, like, the stocks for it. I mean, if you're looking at, like, the top 12, the day 1, the day 2, like, this boy's pretty high up there, and even when you're looking at just how it was able to perform throughout the tournament, like, so many of these teams have one of the two. I mean, obviously Carson winning with
almost
it.
Half of day 2 has one of the Ursalunas. Yeah, 48%.
It's crazy. There's a couple of like teams here. Congrats on Palafin, by the way. And then we go bear. Okay, bear. There's a bear. There's a bear. There's a bear.
Bears everywhere.
Fun fact: Joe's scared of bears, so even more fitting. It's
understandably. I mean, they'll kill you.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
They're not all like sipping on Coca-Cola and enjoying Christmas, Sierra. Like some bears are pretty ferocious.
I bet I've been closer to a bear than either of you guys that I'm here. I've lived. So
that's a black bear. That's different.
Yeah. He's not drinking Coca-Cola.
I don't know. I was less than a foot away from it. I opened my door and the bear was standing there and I lived. So we're good. But besides the point, like, this meta, it's interesting because we're talking about things kind of settling a little bit more, but then as they settle, we're seeing that Pokemon that, like, we knew that would be good. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we never doubted that, like, the Ursalunas were going to be good and have been good, right? But it's interesting to see them kind of popping up a little bit more and more, and even just, like, a couple of these other Pokemon that we saw Nils obviously win an event with Excadrill Sand. We actually did get to see one in Top Cut here, so I think that's kind of an interesting part of the meta where we're at, too, now that we only have 2 regionals left in this format, which seems crazy.
Well, 3 if you consider Perth, of course.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that is like the 7th and 8th, right?
Yep.
December. Yeah. So
it's on GC weekend, I think, right? Is that 7 8th? That might actually be 7
I think I'm pretty sure it's 7 to 8. So yeah, my bad. Sorry, two broadcasted regionals.
Yeah,
that's how I work my mind. I'm so sorry. I wish that those events were streamed too. But 3 majors left. Like, how much do we think we're deviating off of this, or if this is kind of where it's settled? Because how much Ursalunas and like with the 3 Talonflames we got here, it's already like still pushing the envelope a bit.
I mean, I would say with Ursaluna, right? Like, it's obviously an incredibly good Pokemon. I mean, I feel like either version, right? Like, I don't think you can really go wrong having either on your team. It's just the way they're utilized is obviously a bit different, right? So, obviously on Carson's team, the Blood Moon Ursaluna is better because it gets going quicker, and that's kind of the idea with the Talonflame offense. And then you have the more like, I wouldn't say slow burn teams, but like the rain teams that are a bit more, you're kind of slowly getting yourself in a position where like that Blood Moon or the Ursaluna Hizui comes in, it gets that burn, and then it's putting on pressure with Facades and Headlongs and everything in Tailwind, right? Like they operate at different paces, and I think Blood Moon is more of like a breakneck like pace of like, I'm going to knock you out, Blood Moon, Hyper Voice, Earth Power, die, something comes in, does more damage, right? Whereas like Ursaluna is like, oh, I'm gonna catch you on the specific turn where you're not expecting it, bring in the bear, get a flame orb burn, and then you're gonna be in trouble for the rest of the game, right? So I think that's really interesting because I feel like the pacing is very different with both, but they're both like strong in their own way because they control the game so heavily.
You know what I just noticed, by the way? What Pokemon is dramatically missing from top 8 and even like beyond a bit?
The
Rillaboom.
boom.
Rillaboom, yeah.
Yeah. That boy is gone. The first one is 17th place for the top placing, then 1 for 20th. 2 Rillabooms in all of Top Cut, and a fall to 23% on the usage as Incineroar climbs back up. That one's an interesting little development there.
Have you heard of Direclaw?
Have you heard of the fact that it's been here the entire format, and that's why we
No, but hold on here. But so one, Direclaw on your grass typing, and then a lot of Rillabooms are Terra Fire, and now because of being Terra Fire, you're even weaker to the rain teams than you were beforehand. So I think Rillaboom is in like a really awkward position. Plus, you see, what is that? That's 4 Indeedis, 5 Indeedis in the top 11, both female and male there. 4 of the male ones, 1 female. So, like there's like so much anti-Rillaboom hate right now that it's kind of tough to justify bringing in. Also, so many other Pokemon want that assault vest, like, you know, potentially. So a lot of times they're running loaded dice anyway now with like the bullet seed silliness. So I agree, it is surprising to only have 2 in the top 20 of the asymmetrical top cut. But like I understand also Talonflame coming back, right? Like I understand why it's fallen.
For such a change, like for context, LAIC here. Rillaboom. Like, we still got Sneaslers, we still got Talonflame, we still have Indeedee. Rillaboom. Like, and then you could say, okay, well, it's an IC, as we have 1.5 million Rillabooms. But then you can even look back to Louisville, and that's still, like, a decent amount there. And still, like, we hadn't quite figured out the Indeedee. We were still kind of split there. But I think that's just kind of interesting overall. I have
a theory.
Rillaboom. Theory, okay.
It's a West Coast regional. Like West Coast regionals usually don't have much of the like standard balancy like teams as much as the other ones. Like even if you look at the teams that look more conventionally like balancy, right? Like Palafin Hydreigon is not standard, right? You look at like, you know, some of the other teams like Akil's team, right, with Corviknight, Sneasler, like look at the art set, like open up that team and like look at the Archaludon on this team. When I saw this before top 4, I was like, what is going on here? Like it's Terra Dragon, Stamina, Power Herb Archaludon. Like that's not a standard Archaludon. Like there's and like I'm not
to deal some damage. He wants to go game mode.
Well, I was
going crazy.
So I didn't really fully understand because I actually talked to him before and I was like, yo, look, man. I was like, obviously we've already looked at each other's teams. We were like sitting backstage or whatever, right? I'm like, you gotta explain this Archaludon to me because I'm like, I don't understand it. He's like, well, Stamina is really good in the mirror versus them, and then like Terra Dragon is really good for doing extra damage. And like my next thought was like, but don't you just get like Draco meteored by the other Archaludon? I was like, they're not running Draco on that team, which is why Terra Dragon is like fine. So like it was kind of cute, but like also like there's like some weird stuff at West Coast events. I guarantee you, as soon as you look at Germany next week, you're going to be on the OHKO podcast and my words are going to like come back in your guys' brains as you're talking about this. I promise you there will be like at least 5 Rillabooms in the top 8, maybe 4.
I mean, yeah, EU seems to like the balance.
They love Rillaboom.
They got the Rillaboom.
Yeah. Rillaboom is an EU Pokemon through and through. It appears on some NA teams, but it is a balance, like it is a balance fiend Pokemon. It is like the perfect balance player Pokemon.
That's a regional you're going to as well, right? So.
Yep, that's why I got Typhlosion.
Yeah, you gotta be ready for all the Rillaboom. I think my struggles I've had with Rillaboom is like, because it's a balanced Pokemon, right? And you can do Assault Vest U-turn and you can do Parting Shot U-turn synergy with Incineroar and just keep switching, you know, cycling fake outs and whatever. Is like Rillaboom for me falls between the tough line of like, I want to do a lot of damage because I have a free life orb because it sets up its own grassy terrain and it does 30% more damage than its grass attacks. So like I want to do damage with it, but I also want Rillaboom to tank 3 hits the way Incineroar can. And like, so sometimes you either just build bulky Rillaboom and then your Woodhammers do, you know, 35%. And they're like, oh, and then sometimes you go all out on attack and then you just get one banged like from a special attack anyway. So that's where I personally struggle with Rillaboom. I still think it is a fantastic Pokemon. Like I think a lot of times I put it maybe as like a crutch. I put it on my teams when I'm team building, but like I'm just saying is I can understand why it might like be struggling in Sacramento.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is too, you kind of mentioned this, which I think is pretty true. It is competing for the Assault Vest slot, right? So automatically on like the rain teams, you're shoehorned into using something that isn't, Assault Vest pretty much, right? Because you always want an Archaludon for the most part. And then another issue too is that like even not Archaludon, right? Like if you actually look at the demand for Assault Vest throughout the entire tournament, like there's actually a lot of Assault Vests like everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Carson notably like didn't have it, but that also makes sense because he's running like a more offensive team, right? But like then you look at like Akil's team immediately, Assault Vest on Incineroar. My team had Assault Vest on King Gambit, right? And then you keep like looking again, Assault Vest Instant again in top 8 on David Hutner's team, right? So it's clear that like people are wanting to throw the Assault Vests to other Pokemon, and like Rilla's either not fitting in the picture or like just because of the way it operates, it's like not slotting into the teams the same way. Right, like automatically, if I see a Garchomp on a team, like I would assume a Rillaboom wouldn't be on that team, right? Or if I see like certain Pokemon, like they just feel like less compatible with Rillaboom. And I think the main archetype where Rillaboom was like super popular in the beginning of the format was like these like Electabuzz, Magmar, Balance, like Rillaboom compositions. Primarina's fallen off in the metagame a lot too, right?
Primarina was never good.
Yeah,
Fraud Pokemon. It's bad.
I think it is a bad Pokemon, but
you might get flamed. Oh, the Discard's gonna go crazy if you speak negative about Primarina.
No, I'm just where the results. Show me the results.
Be careful. We're about to go into a German regional with Michael Durbest in attendance, probably bringing the same team for like the 20th time.
No, according to social media, he's gonna spice it up this time.
Yeah, I would bet money that it's the same team.
I'm looking forward to whatever, but I think they just like, even if there is the good points about like the Rillaboom, especially with Assault Vest, all that, I'm just looking at all these Indeedee. Like Indeedee's not even on the day 2 usage, but Indeedee is 6 of them in top cut versus 2 Rillaboom, which was on the usage. Yeah, it's like crazy performance. Like I know there's a lot of like when you're building a team, there's things that you have to respect, right? And you're saying that when people are building teams, they're not necessarily like respecting Sun, right? But I feel like right now, like this Indeedee and just like being able to have that Psychic Terrain, being able to have an expanding force, like all of this, like this, like is this like it's not being respected, or is this just way too strong? Like it can't be.
I think like the thing is with Indeedee, so it's good, but I think it's good when it's next to Sneasler for the most part, because if you think about it, right, like everything that Sneasler wants to do as a Pokemon, like Indeedee actually complements pretty well, right? Because if you're running the Sneasler set that like has Protect, right, but it doesn't have like coaching or it doesn't have Fake Out, right, the main thing that obviously puts you at a disadvantage of is means you are weak to Fake Out, you can't really counter an opposing Fake Out, you have to Protect to slow yourself down. Indeedee being able to switch in obviously helps with that. Having Helping Hand also helps because then in Incineroar coming in, you're still knocking it out clean with a Helping Hand close combat, right? And also too, like Dire Claw statuses, right? You can completely wipe any terrains you don't want active, right? I mean, electric terrain's not really going up anyways, but like for example, let's say you're against a Pokemon with Misty terrain, you eventually get your Psychic terrain in, boom, you can clear that away, right? So I think like that's a really impactful thing to notice. I also think another thing with Indeedee too is like I even look at its like percentages sometimes of like how it's used online, right? And like it's jumped up quite considerably. Like it used to be a way lower used mon, and it went from like I think like 5%, 4% of teams to like being up to like 10 or 11%. That's quite a big jump, right? Like it doesn't look that big, but like that means like around 10% of the teams you're going to play versus are going to have a male Indeedee. So that's like definitely something you have to respect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think to answer your question, like, why is it being disrespected or not, people not building around it? I think there are only so many answers to Psychic Terrain because like you can't Sucker Punch to stop it. You can't do so many things. It's male Indeedee is a generally fast Pokemon in this particular format. So it's not even that like teams aren't building to prepare for it. It's like there aren't really that many great options besides, Ice Spinner KOing your own Pokemon to get rid of the terrain. You know what I'm saying, Joe?
Yeah. Well, you know how it is, No, I mean, even then, like in finals, like obviously Ice Spinner helped me. If I didn't have Ice Spinner, I was probably like in a ton of trouble, right? So, I mean, you have to find like text to throw stuff. I mean, I have a personal policy with like every tournament, which is why I always have respect for Psy Spam on my teams. I will never go into a tournament with no hard tricker matchup, no Psy Spam matchup, or no Dondozo matchup, because in my opinion, those archetypes are archetypes that are never going to like quote unquote win. Carson's a bit different because it's not like true Psy Spam. It's kind of like Psy Spam with a purpose on an offensive team. It's not like I'm just gonna throw like 3-second guys at you clicking expanding force type of Psy Spam.
There's layers to it. Like,
yeah, there's layers to it. But like the way I look at it is like I'm not going to lose to the archetypes that are gonna beat me and then go like 5-3. That's the way I see it. Like I have no faith that a Dondozo is going to ever win a tournament, right? I have no faith that like a Psy Spam, like a hard trick room Psy Spam person is ever going to win a tournament. But I know that I'm probably going to hit 1 or 2 in Swiss, and I don't want to lose to those teams because I'm going to be pissed if I lose to the team that isn't even going to win the tournament. It's like, at least like let it be a good team I'm losing to. So that's the way I think of it.
Oh goodness. Okay. Well, instead of going down what could be a dangerous route with that conversation, while we're talking about our
hold on. Wait, you guys hate on Sneasler all the time. I'm not allowed to have this one on Psy Spam and Dozo?
I don't know what you're referring to. We're very Sneasler neutral on this podcast.
I've never talked bad about Sneasler a day in my life.
Yep.
I have not talked bad about Sneasler the last 3 podcast episodes because we were getting comments about how much we were hating on Sneasler.
Yeah, so must be some other podcast you're referring to, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yep.
But we'll take the opportunity talking about archetypes for another viewer question, because this seems like a good spot to be slotting it in before we start moving on from kind of the more Sacramento conversation. But obviously, like you brought the Sun team. You've been bringing the Sun team. I'm assuming by your opinions of these teams aren't winning events that you're not necessarily interested in the Dondos of the Psy Spam, etc. But Fendi G was wondering what about other archetypes doesn't interest you nearly as much as Sun? Of course, making the assumption that the Sun is the most thing you're kind of interested in.
So like what is like most comparable in terms of interest?
Like what about other archetypes is like
why
negative
do you enjoy
in your
this
mind,
one so much? Or like why hasn't like
Sun?
Yeah.
Oh, so
but
like
you always go back.
Well, because honestly, like it's just
you're
really
just, like clicking sleep powder.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't know what it is. It's just like people in the back of their minds are just like, oh, like it's only Joe playing Sun, right? So I don't got to think about it, right? And then like you have a situation where it's like, for example, the top 16 versus Underhill, right? Like you don't have a sleep powder matchup now. So it's like I'm praying that it's missing. And I find that happens with a lot of top players because, and it makes sense, right? Because sometimes you just had your bets, right? You're like, oh, like I'm not gonna like play this archetype, right? It's just so low probability. It's probably gonna get knocked out before I play it, right? But like the thing is with a Sun and why I like it is because there's so many people that think that way about it, right? That so many people show up to the tournament without actually being prepared for it, right?
So would you then say that you're like going for archetypes then that are more against the meta and are on a more disrespected thing? Or is it just so happens that the Sun aligns with that? Because that's kind of a really curious point that you're bringing up then, which kind of then is a whole different conversation about going up against the meta in comparison to going with it.
Well, so it's interesting, right? Because I think that like in terms of like archetypes that like I guess make me want to go back to Sun, typically like I go back to Sun when I feel like the format matches the pacing of the team, like what it wants to accomplish, right? So like what I mean by that is like, okay, Torkoal Jumpluff obviously don't operate in a higher power level format, right? If I bring Torkoal Jumpluff versus a Miraidon, I'm losing all my games, like I'm never winning that game, right? And that's fine because it's not meant to beat that, right? And I think it's like a perfect combination of like what's popular, also like what's the power level of the format, and then also like how does it operate? Like, so for example, right, like back in Regulation C, I think of the Jumpluff Torkoal team I was using back then, right? And going into NAIC, like I was considering, am I going to drop it? Am I going to use it, right? And a big reason for that is because one of the meta teams at the time that popped up was just like really bad for like what I was using. Like it was just really, really bad. And I also had like no Murkrow matchup at the time. Like back then, like that team had nothing for Murkrow. It was just kind of like a prey that you can like make them make mistakes type situation, right? And what I learned from like that point of time, right, was that you basically need to know when you need to like innovate on a team versus like you drop the team because it's not good in the metagame, right? And I think like the reason why I keep going back to Sun is because I'm seeing favorable positions for Sun to succeed, and that's kind of what's making me go back to it. And it's like allowing me to play the game I want to play. Like I think of like, I mean, you didn't see me use Sun at all in Regulation E, right? And that's just because I didn't think it was a good format for Sun, right? I never played it because it just did not feel good. But I found the team, Riley Factura's team, that was still really offensive, put a ton of oppressive pressure on, and in the end was still using a Moongus. Whenever I don't use like a Sleep Powder Pokemon, it's usually a Moongus on the teams I'm using. And it's because I'm still really comfortable with leveraging sleep, leveraging that pressure around like debilitating statuses that the opponent has to play around, right? And I think like that's something that is like the key like point for me is like when that, you know, debilitating status of like Sleep Powder and like, you know, even Burning Jealousy on this team is like Jumpluff and Torkoal, great. I'm happy to use it, right? If the format's not right for what I want to use, then I'll use other broken Pokemon if like it means I'm going to win. That's kind of the way I think about it, right? So I wouldn't say it's a specific archetype that pushes me in that direction because I always consider every archetype when I'm building. It's just more so like, does the team jive well with me and does it feel good right now to play?
I also think with you specifically, like I wouldn't consider you using Sun as like as a counter team or counter meta strategy or whatever, because like even when Rinnia Sun was like running the world, like you were still using a Sun team, right? So it's not like you're not just using the Sun strat because it counters what other people are putting. Like if you genuinely feel like it's you know, the strongest archetype gives you the best chance to win, but like I don't know if you watched Brazil, Joe. I don't know if maybe you forgot, like maybe you didn't get the patch notes, but we had 3-time IC champion Marco Silva on the podcast, and Hisuian Typhlosion was turned into Charizard. Did you miss the patch notes? Like, why do you still have Typhlosion here? Charizard prints money, bro. Like, he one-shot at Arch Alladon with Weather Ball.
Did make a lot more money than you.
Like, what are we doing here? What is Typhlosion still on the team for? Let's go to Charizard. You have a free Earthquake target for your Garchomp. Like get with the times, Joe.
Well, the thing is like, I think, so me and Marco's teams have very different intentions, right? The intention with his team is he's going to play a very fair European game of Pokemon with a little bit of spice with one Sleep Powder or two, maybe one Sunny Day Heat Wave or two. Mine is I'm going to throttle you with offense until you lose, and I'm going to like actually put pressure on you the whole game, right?
Do you not see what his Charizard was doing? You want to say that he doesn't have offense? Hold on. And this is something that people don't like understand about the team is that Marco's team, you have to play very reactively until you get in the right position. And although that's still true with my team, it's a lot easier to get in the right position to put on pressure because of Typhlosion being immune to Fake Out. If Typhlosion did not have the Ghost typing, I would not be using Typhlosion over Charizard. But the thing is that Ghost typing is so impactful in the game. The amount of like times it makes opponents freak out about like, oh, well, he might Terra Fire, but I can't Fake Out into a Ghost type. Otherwise, I'm going to look really silly, right? Or like, oh, I have to now Fake Out and Sucker Punch into this to double target the Typhlosion. Now my other partner's free to do whatever it wants, right? So like the thing is on Marco's team, the Charizard works really well because it has manual Sunny Day Jumpluff, right? He has Rage Powder to support it as well. He has a lot different like ways to support that team. And like the Earthquake Ursaluna plus Charizard makes a lot of sense on his team because that situation is going to come up a lot. In my games, most of the time, Typhlosion is running the games. Garchomp does not come near as much as Charizard, or not Charizard, Typhlosion, right? Typhlosion is coming to pretty much every game, unless it's like bad in the matchup, then I won't take it, right? And the amount of pressure it exerts with Eruption specifically is so much more impactful than Charizard, because with Charizard, you have to kind of gamble, right? You have to, and it's funny because I'm kind of using like a team that can miss or whatever, but Marco's team, right? You have to lean into Weather Wall if you want that consistent damage, right? You have to lean into Overheat. You have to lean into Heat Wave. If I get a Terra Fire Eruption on the board one turn, usually people just instantly crumble under that pressure. They can't deal with it. I can't express how many times I had games end because it was literally Sleep Powder, something went to sleep, Overheat, Typhlosion came in,
and then Torkoal switches back in to counter the rain switch in, Terrifier Eruption, game over. Like literally it was just a checkmate move. People would just instantly lose to it and have no answers, right? And every single Pokemon dies to it because Terrifier Eruption is a little bit stronger than Solar Power Heat Wave. So you do even more damage than people are expecting, and you just get a ton of knockouts. It's pretty crazy. Like, and then also too, like, if you think they're just gonna fake you out with Incin, you just don't Terra, and then they fake out your Ghost type, and they're sitting there, and they're like really sad that they just like faked out into Typhlosion. Like, you know, so it works out really well. Like, I think it just leans better into the way I play. Like, it consistent aggression, forcing opponents in a bad position. I also really like that you have actual use for its secondary coverage. Charizard is never clicking Air Slash. That move is never getting touched on that Pokemon. So like on Typhlosion, the amount of times I clicked Shadow Ball to lock up endgame safely was like perfect. I was clicking it actually a good chunk of times because it was a strong move that hits everything. Ghost typing is like not resisted by many Pokemon, and it was able to clean up a lot of games safely as well, which I think is really important on a team where you have so many moves that can miss to have some consistent routes to win.
I think the craziest part of that conversation, Sierra, was Marco's going to play a nice European game of Pokemon. That was a crazy quote.
I mean, it's true. It's true. I mean, look, when I watch a European stream of Pokemon, okay, I have like a checklist of 3 things I expect, okay? Incineroar, okay? Parting Shot or U-turn, okay? Happening every game, and like at least 3 hard switches per game, right? Then I think of like, you know, my games, right? And it's like 1 or 2 switches and I click like Eruption, right? Or like I click like Assurance Attack, right? And like it's not the same game. Like we're playing different games, and it's not in like a bad way. Like I think the way Marco plays, obviously it's consistent. He's good, you know? It's just that I think the way fundamentally a lot of Europeans approach the game is just like not how I think about the game. Like I see some turns like where they're playing this super long balancing mirror, you know, the guy switching in Rillaboom to the ground type attack or whatever. And I'm just like, dude, like this was so obvious, just like Dragon Claw into like the flying type coming in once, or like Dragon Claw into the Dragonite switching in, or like Stomping Tantrum into the Rillaboom as like Golden Go comes in. But they just play the game so differently where it's like that. So the pacing of like Marco's team doesn't match what I want out of like my team. I want to be able to punish those plays, right? I want to be able to be like, I know you're doing this. I'm going to make you like pay for it, basically, you know? So
that makes sense. That makes sense.
My bad. I went on a tangent there. Sorry. I was
No,
very
you're
passionate.
good. It's
I was
just
very
funny.
passionate about Typhlosion. What can I say?
And European
Yeah.
Pokemon.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. I mean, we asked you on the podcast. I would hope that you would yap. So we're no apologies. We're good there. I was just thinking of what to ask next in terms of our viewer questions, because there is a couple. But if we're talking about Europe, we're talking about, you know, they play and all of that. We'll talk about you in this worldwide journey that you're going on, because you were just in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're in Sacramento.
Yep.
Now you're going out to Stuttgart. That is this upcoming weekend. Literally,
Yep.
You will be leaving the day of or the day after the podcast goes live. So first off, that's crazy. And Queenie asked, with 2 top place finishes, do you ever see yourself taking a break? Like you've talked about how you enjoy going to events and like hitting as many as possible, but any type of break, or when's like the type 2A break? Because I know even the beginning of the season you were talking about the breaks. There's been a couple of events you've thought about not going of, but it always comes back around, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you know, on a more personal note with this conversation, I mean, me and Sierra, I remember we were out at like lunch one day or whatever, and I was like, man, I feel like a little bit confused in the direction like I want to go with Pokemon, right? Because 24 was one of the worst seasons I think I had competitively. Like I felt like I kind of regressed a little bit in terms of what I was doing. And I felt like I was missing like a lot of that drive to like play, right? But there was just something, I mean, if you think about it, really, maybe Jumpluff Torkoal kind of saved my career a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, but like, basically, like, I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, I went to Baltimore. I remember I told Sierra, I was like, oh, I don't really feel like going, like, whatever, like, I'll just go though. And like, I ended up playing it, and like, there was something about that tournament, like, playing with the Jumpluff Torkoal team, like, having fun using like the Pokemon again. I was like, oh man, I was like, this is like the feeling I had when I was like competing in 23 and I like really, really, really wanted to win. You know what I mean? And like slowly over like every tournament that I like started going to and like continually playing this team, right? I'm like, this like, I'm starting to have fun again. You know what I mean? Like, I'm starting to like actually like remember what it feels like to enjoy like the team. I'm like not feeling pressured that I have to bring something that's going to win all the time, but playing something that works for me and also lets me have fun while I'm playing the game. Like even in Sacramento, like notably, like I'm friends with Aaron Brock, right? And like even during our games, like we were like laughing about some turns, we were having fun, like I was enjoying myself. And like I think Pokemon, you play at your best when you have the perfect balance between enjoying yourself and like enjoying yourself but also caring, you know what I mean, like you wanting to do well and like having that drive and motivation. And I think honestly, like what's really kept me going with like all these like travels, like I wouldn't be going on all this travel if I wasn't genuinely having fun. Like if I was not sitting down every tournament enjoying myself, like I don't think I would have that motivation and like passion to do it. And like I think that might be a challenge that I might encounter with Regulation G, depending on obviously like how the format goes and everything. But like I want to like ride it as long as I can. Like it's fun. I'm having fun. Like I am enjoying the game, you know. And I'm very happy that I think I can say this because I know, you know, obviously when I was talking to Sierra about this conversation, I was kind of bummed. I was like, oh man, like I really want to, you know, like have that like enjoyment. I want to win again, you know, and I really want to achieve these goals. And it feels hard sometimes, you know, because like the game's not always easy. It's a hard game to like consistently be on the top of. And yeah, I just like, I don't know. There's just something very special about this format. I just feel that drive again to like play and like do well. And it actually makes me very, very sad that we only get Regulation H for like 3 months, because I actually feel like there's so much potential left in this format to like continuously develop and go. And like there's like a selfish little piece inside of me that like wants it to come back for the final format of like Worlds, because I feel like it'd be a really fun like conclusion to Scarlet and Violet. Realistically, will it probably be double restricted? More than likely, but like I would love to have more time with this format instead of going back to Regulation G. And like I don't know, there's just something about this format that just like reignited that passion inside of me, and like it makes me happy. You know, I wouldn't be playing the game if I wasn't enjoying it. And I think that's like a very like special part of it for me.
Well, we do a follow up to like, you know, you love the game, and if you're planning on taking a break or continuing, one of our questions from Aldrich John, who's a Joe Brown fan but has the worst TCG pocket luck I've ever seen in my life. He asked, do you feel safe for a Worlds invite after your current results? Which, you know, we're in a different world now that you have to continue playing to stay in that top 25, where like last year, if you had 2 second place finishes, you probably at like currently at like 400 CP. You're only 100 away from the Worlds bar, and we still have all these months remaining. Like, do you feel safe, like if you stopped now, or like if you only went to the 2 other ICs and no other regionals this year, do you think you get your Worlds invite, or do you think you still have to get more CP?
Oh, like where as it stands right now, like let's see where I'm at.
Context for points, you're at 11. This is this year, right? You're
I
at
don't think I'm worried.
1140.
Yeah, I don't think I'm worried. But to be honest with you, my goal this season, like I actually vaguely remember having this conversation with Sierra. I'm not sure when I had it, but I remember specifically saying that like it wasn't like I'm not worried about qualifying, but like I want to do it like right. Like I want to be consistent and I want to like play at my best, you know? And for me, what I value about this season is I find the lower BFLs like a really good opportunity, because I don't want like my BFLs to just like be like, oh, I have to spam events to fill out like a bunch of like event results, right? Even if they're like really mid, right? Like, no, I'm going because I want the best of the best of the events in those BFLs, right? So like when I look at the BFL of like finals, and ideally like more better performances, right? I can be like, wow, I'm proud. I had a good season and like I had a strong showing, right? Like I never really look at it as like, oh, I'm worried about qualifying for Worlds, because I already know I have that capability inside me. It's like I want to continue getting better as a player and like reach that next like threshold of like what like makes me a top player, you know, or like what gives me the capabilities to win Worlds, right? Because like honestly, at some point it becomes less of like it's hard to make Worlds as opposed to it is hard to win Worlds, you know? And like for me, I feel like I'm at the stage where it's like I feel very confident I can always qualify. It's just I need to be able to what is that extra step to like win that international, win Worlds. Like that's what it is for me when I look at these things. Like I'm never really worried about that. Do I want to be number 1 by the end of the season? Absolutely, 100%. Don't get me wrong, I would love to do that, but I also don't want to get distracted and only focus on that number versus like, am I the world champion at the end of the year? Am I an international champion at the end of the year? Can I achieve those goals?
It checks out. And we'll stay on the viewer questions for Ugarte over here at the next one. So the format isn't holding you back because you're enjoying the format. You're enjoying what you're doing, all of this. How about how you handle the constant time zone changes constantly? Like you're going to Brazil, you go back home, then like back to New York, then you're out west, and then you're back to New York. Now you're going to Europe. Like how do you keep up with that? And it's just like the exhaustion of travel, because like that is a lot in itself, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, for me, the way I think of it is like in the in between times. I mean, you know this because I talk to you a lot, but like a lot of my in between tournament times is like I get back home. Let's say I have like 2-3 days, right? Like I do like some coaching because I obviously open up my schedule whenever I'm like home. So like it still keeps me in the vibe of Pokemon without me having to directly like play Pokemon to like stay like refreshed on like the game, right? And I still think about Pokemon in my downtime, but a little bit less so, like more casually, right? And like honestly, like it's just like sleeping a lot or like chilling in bed a lot, like just unwinding a little bit because I feel like when you're constantly in like that tournament mindset every weekend, you need like some time to decompress, right? So whether it's just like playing games with friends, right? Or just like coach, I coach people obviously, right? So I'm doing my job still. Like I'm not just sitting there like doing nothing all day, but like I'm I'm also giving myself some more time to like chill and like relax, right? And like in between like going to different time zones, I feel like the main thing that I've learned is like a really good trick is like don't schedule flights at like deathly hours that you don't want to be awake. Because the thing is like it might be fine for like one of them, but then they slowly start adding up. It's like you're there at 8 a.m. like you hate it, and then you're like super tired by the time you get there, but then you have to be up longer. So by the time you get to the like Airbnb or hotel or whatever, you already have your second win, but then you can't fall asleep, and then you're really sleepy anyways, right? But so it's like it's a whole mess. So what I always try and do now is like I try to aim my flights around getting me in there like an opportune time in the time zone, right? So like for example, like getting into Sacramento at 1 a.m., it seemed like it was like a bad idea, but it was actually pretty good for me because well, unless the flight got canceled, obviously, but
Yeah.
it got me in at 1 a.m. I instantly fell asleep because I was so tired. Woke up at 7 and it was just like a clean 6 hours of sleep. Like I just like knocked out and I was fine. Right. And then like the next day, again, I was tired by the end of the day, went to sleep immediately on the schedule, even though it was 3 hours behind. Right. And it was a bit of an easier transition because of West Coast. Then for Brazil, right, what I did was, which made my life really easy, is as I was going back to East Coast, I slept. So I stayed up because Brady was leaving our hotel at like 7 a.m. I stayed up with him till 7 a.m., got breakfast with him, then went to sleep at 8 a.m. and I woke up at 4 p.m. But because of the way like I had put it all together, right? It basically meant that when I went to sleep in New York, it was like nighttime pretty much. So it like worked out fine. And again, like I transitioned pretty well like then, right? And now going to Germany, I'm leaving tomorrow night, Thursday night. So I'm getting there on Friday morning. Ideally, I sleep for some of the flight, right? And I'm like, I still want to be like kind of tired by the time I reach like Friday night. But then it's like I can fall asleep like pretty quickly because I'm tired on that Friday. And like the nice thing about using the same team a lot of the times is like you don't have to stress like getting the Pokemon again, like anything. It's just like, okay, resubmit here, like rental code, okay, done, and then that's it, right? So it like saves you a lot of stress for sure. And I think like all those things factored together has helped me find like I don't want to say like I have a perfect balance, but I think it's like helped me kind of figure out how to do it better,
Yeah.
All right. Well, this one's more off the wall. This is a hypothetical question posed by Split Second in the Discord, and anyone who ever wants to ask questions for us to answer on the podcast, make sure you join the Discord link down below. But they ask, in the future, if Mega Evolution comes back, which Mega do you plan on trying to use in team building? And will Mega Charizard Y be a potential Sun team you'll use alongside Jumpluff and Paradoxes?
Ooh.
Because you were not a Zard Y guy back in the day, Mega Metagross and some of the other Megas you used back in the day. But like you're known for Sun, you never really used Mega Charizard Y. Like, do you plan on using it in the future? Now you have busted Paradox Pokemon. Zard Y Fluttermane? Started by Walking Wake.
Mega Charizard, huh? I think the Mega I'd probably end up using if I just had to like give an estimate, right? Okay, so if it's Sun, I think the Mega I'd probably end up using is Kangaskhan, actually. Right? That's just like my if I had to guess which one I would end up using, right? If I were using an archetype that wasn't Sun, I feel like I'd use Mega Gengar. I really like Mega Gengar as a Pokemon. Or Charizard X. Or Charizard X. I actually really like Charizard X.
I love Charizard X. Yeah.
It's so cool. It's way cooler. It's like actually just like peak design. It's way better than Charizard Y.
Remember back in the day with way before open team sheets. Like I once got top 16 at a Brooklyn PC, which doesn't sound great, but there were 70 players back then, so it actually was I think it was like 7 rounds. I got top 16 with Charizard X because like all you did was you could just see the 6 Pokemon. Your opponent had no information, and so like everybody and their mother would just assume it was Charizard Y, and then you would Mega Evolve really and just one shot with Flare Blitz, and they were like, oh,
they're like, wait, what?
And it was best of 1, baby.
Yeah, no, that was always like a really funny part of it, right? That you could always like do stuff like that. I mean, I think megas are so interesting. The only thing that I would hope that gets fixed, if they bring Mega Evolutions back, is they actually make it like more megas good, basically. You know what I mean? I just feel like right now, like if I think of like a mega format, I'm thinking like Kangaskhan, Salamence, Metagross maybe, right? I think of Mega Gengar, Charizard Y, Charizard X, maybe that's a bit of a stretch, right? Like they're very limited good Pokemon, right?
Well, hold on though. In defense of this hypothetical future format that doesn't exist yet, Mega Evolution is a completely different ballgame with dynamic speed. Right, there could have been some 90 overall mega speed before that now has the dynamic tailwind or dynamic icy wind to make it a little bit more viable.
That's true. Also, too, I think Mega Alakazam actually gets way better because you have Expanding Force now, so it's like actually like not a bad Pokemon. Because back then, like if you were using Mega Alakazam, like you were just down bad. Like it was dying to everything. It was fast, but like it wouldn't do enough damage to anything with the psychic moves. So like at least now you get Expanding Force, right? So that's like something you could do. But no, I mean I think of it's interesting you bring that up because I feel like megas were a very different like time. I think back to like what it was like playing with megas, and I think of like Sword and Shield. I think of like Scarlet and Violet, and the games were just so vastly different. They just felt different. Like playing Pokemon felt different in so many unique ways. So I think it's really interesting. But yeah, final answer: Gengar if it wasn't a Sun archetype, and if it was a Sun archetype, I feel like I'd probably end up using Kangaskhan.
Sure. See, I always want Mega Sceptile to be good because he's just cool.
You love Sceptile, so it makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mega Ho-Oh.
Oh, leaks? No.
oh. By the way, I have a theory. I need to share this theory here, actually. Okay. So with the new games coming out, I just want this in video here, or like whatever. Okay, this is my theory, okay? So we're obviously gonna have 4 years of Scarlet and Violet. That is my assumption. Right, because we still have enough time right now where like there's not going to be a new game out fast enough to like replace like Scarlet and Violet from what we know, of course, right? So my theory is that Legends what is it called? It's ZA. Legends ZA, okay, is going to come out, all right? So we're going to have Regulation G throughout the period of regulations throughout ZA's release, right? And for the double restricted format, what's going to happen is they're going to finally finish getting home transfers done. And Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde are all going to be able to be played in Scarlet and Violet for the final format. And that's going to be like their final shakeup because even Legends Arceus had home transfers, right? And they have enough time to figure out the home compatibility window. It won't be during Regulation G because it's not enough time. It's coming out during that cycle, right? But I think it'll come out for last format, and if not for Worlds format, I think it'll come out for the next year. That's like how they'll spice up next year. That's how they'll spice up next year.
The game is probably coming out like late next fall /
then it's definitely okay.
Like,
so
I would guess like an early December release. I'm thinking December 10th. Put that in video.
Okay.
December 10th, Legend ZA release.
I think it's November 20th. That's what I think.
I'm just hung up on you want Xerneas with terrestrializing? You don't
that'd be fun.
You don't like the potential toxicity of that Pokemon?
Look,
I'm just running Xerneas and 5 follow me users.
That's what I'm saying,
guys.
Like
Zerndon Jumpluff. I see the bigger picture here. Xerneas, Groudon, Jumpluff. My life is great. I'm clicking Sleep Powder. I'm clicking Geomancy. Everything's good with the world. It's all good.
So to me, the question is more because I think obviously because it is Gen 6, you can have the Gen 6 Legendary Trio. The question is if the Tapus are going to be in it. One, because everybody
I think they will. I actually think they will.
And if we're kind of repeating history, the genies were Gen 5, but they were in the Gen 4 Hisui back in time game.
And there were 4 of them.
And the Tapus are the Gen 7 legendaries, and we're going into a prehistoric Gen 6 game or whatever, a back in time thing. Like so my prediction is that the Tapus are coming back more than Xerneas and them, because like, could you imagine if we had Tapu Fini right now to stop the Dire Claws, to stop all the sleep powders, to stop all the, like, Tapu Fini would be like 60% usage mon right now.
Whoa, hold on. You're forgetting that like a well-played Tapu Fini also loses to well-played Tapu Lele switching and Dire Claw. So like honestly, like, you know, it's kind of the same thing, right?
Oh yeah. No, that sounds terrible.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. I think
also, oh my god,
Tapu Fini would be so good in this format.
No, because Lele and Sneasler would be crazy. Moonblast close combat, Psychic close combat. If it gets like, imagine they give Lele expanding force, like.
But will you allow that sacrifice if they give Tapu Bulu Grassy Glide, which he rightfully deserves? I think I will take the expanding force.
Don't
Lele
give them anything. They don't.
Because
They
Bulu
are already
help.
strong and.
Well, Bulu's bad. Bulu's bad for what it's worth.
Yeah, no, but like that's not worth giving Lele expanding force.
But it's already going to be busted anyway. So
I think you should give it expanding force.
Don't make it more busted. Don't make it more busted.
You know what?
I want Bulu to compete.
I think we need Ultra Necrozma back. That's what I think we need.
Terra Steel Ultra Necrozma.
No. Terra Psychic Ultra Necrozma with expanding force. I like that. God. I like those odds. You're
cooking too hard, Joe.
Okay, all right. No, but in all seriousness, actually, 100%. I think it would. So I messed up timelines. If it's coming out next fall,
I don't think that there is any like concrete anything that it's out fall. I think that's just like
assumed.
A feeling that I got, but I feel like if it was out earlier, there would have been something said, which makes me believe it has to be late.
So my prediction then is that before either it's the third worlds or the fourth worlds of Scarlet and Violet, what's going to happen is they're going to basically have home transfer capabilities. And actually, now that Joe mentioned it, I do think Tapus are going to be included in that. I think they're going to bring the Tapus back. They're going to have new regional forms, and they're going to bring Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde back.
You know what I hope they bring back?
Baby.
You know what I hope they bring back? My boy Dracozolt. Not because he'd be good in any capability, but then I could have 2 bad mons that I just, so for.
Awesome.
A dinosaur and what's theoretically a dinosaur bug.
Oh yeah, you were a big Dracozolt fan for a while. I kind of forgot about that because it's just gone. It's been gone forever.
Yeah, I know. Somebody brought up like what happened to Dracozolt era, and he's just like, it's not the game.
So what is it about Dracozolt that you really like?
He's just a funny little guy.
He's not little. He's actually pretty large.
He's got like a big badonkadonk. I'm not gonna lie. Like
it's true. But like, let's just like let's pull this boy up, right? I got
good luck landing your attacks without Dynamax. You know what I mean?
I land all my attacks with Dracozolt.
Oh, okay.
I'm different. But like here, I had to make sure like all the searches were fine. But like, look at him.
I had to make sure the search is fine. It's diabolical. That's crazy.
Also,
what are you searching in your downtime?
Like, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, she meant
I'm just saying
like...
you can search something, especially if it's Pokemon, and sometimes it's a little messed up.
There are some heathen Pokemon fans.
Don't look up Machamp at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday.
I'm just looking at this, and it's like all like the variations, and it's Chad Dracozolt.
Let's go.
But I just look. He's just a silly little guy.
We're not even. We're talking about Tapu's Dracozolt. the freaking fish, Terra Water, Choice Band, Vicious Rend in the rain. No, thank you.
Oh no, thanks.
I do not want that.
That'd be awesome. I'd be down.
No.
It would one shot like 4 times resist. Like that would be crazy.
I gotta click this Chad Drakeazult thing.
Is it safe? Is it safe for pod?
I think so. I'm like, there's a lot of text. There is a lot of text. So I'm like, I'm making sure. I'm imaging.
No, I do not want Dracovish back. That's a bad decision. That Pokemon's so toxic. Especially with dynamic speed. You just like put Whimsicott there with Covert Cloak or whatever and like
Alright, yeah, this is fine to share. This is fine to share. You guys have to see Chad Drakeazult.
Oh god. Audio listeners in shambles.
I just unplugged my headphones. Oops.
Okay.
Here we go.
Oh my
Oh my
I know it took me so long to vet through. For those on Spotify, the highlights. So you have the abominations, and it's everything that isn't Dracozolt in terms of the fossils. It's stumpy arms, lives a cursed half-life between land and sea. It's miracle they're still alive. Can't blow its nose because its arms are too short. Steals all your blankets. Just everything just like wrong, right? Typing hasn't been unique since Pokemon Gold and Silver. Crazy. Then it's the Chad Dracozolt. Head screwed on correctly. Arms are a decent length, like
all
comfortably
its
a
organs
land
are
dweller.
accounted for.
thick thighs.
Yep. Could crush someone with its muscular tail. Kind of cute. All of its organs are accounted for. Yeah.
I mean, you can't argue with that. That's just facts.
Bad.
That's just facts.
It
It
is
is facts.
Chad.
It is facts. But yeah,
This is true.
Dracozold's the best. Dracozold's the best.
No, I despise all 4 of those Pokemon.
Whoa.
They're literally like build a Pokemon. You're just sawing pieces of like Pokemon together half
it's
and
based
half.
off of whatever British whatever, where like they found dinosaur like bones and then like mixed them up.
Okay, well they eat bees
That's actually
for
kind of
breakfast.
cool.
So
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
What do you want from me? Like,
Dude, to pick up a history book? Like, I don't know. Like,
That's pretty cool lore.
there is actually lore here.
That's cool lore.
Which I didn't know until somebody told me about it. But yeah, no,
Oh,
it's actually...
okay, all right.
Well, no, that's how you learn. That's how you learn, is you learn from others.
no, Sarah came out the womb knowing the Drake is
I was like, damn, I was like, wow. I was like, very
I was
informed.
born with all the knowledge of dinosaurs.
I didn't know they taught that in Canadian schools or whatever.
Oh.
I mean, it was funny because, like, literally only 2 things I was interested in as a kid was dinosaurs and Pokemon. So either my parents had to read the Pokedex book for me as a kid or the book about dinosaurs, and that's it. That's all.
Rocks.
So
That checks out.
basically did rock up to the function knowing all the dinosaur stuff. But that has been the weirdest side tangent of all.
What do you think about Stegosauruses?
It's not.
Ooh, good
all
question.
Right.
Good.
Yeah,
That's way too lukewarm of an answer. That's not acceptable. You have to be pro or anti Stegosaurus. You can't be lukewarm.
Can you be lukewarm? Why can't I be lukewarm?
Because it's an important conversation.
It's like a very like black and white opinion dinosaur. I feel like it's like either
Right.
cool or you think it looks lame.
Right.
Well, it's just like there's cooler dinosaurs. Don't get me wrong, but it's like it's not like the dumbest looking dinosaur.
The coolest one, in my opinion, is actually not the T-Rex. It's the
I was expecting you to say that.
what's that one that has like the armor plates on its back and it has that club tail? That's like a circle.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I thought you were Miss Dinosaur over here. I thought you'd have it like that.
Well, I'm not a kid
Oh,
anymore.
Ankylosaurus.
I grew a little bit.
Yeah, Ankylosaurus. I think it's an Ankylosaurus.
Why isn't there a Pokemon based off that?
Dude, that would be a cool Pokemon. I want an
Right?
Ankylosaurus
Like-
Pokemon.
Gouging Fires based off of?
No, because
No,
like
he's a Triceratops.
Gouging Fire-
He's a Triceratops.
Triceratops?
Dude,
Okay,
like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not-
I knew
yeah,
he was
no,
off of
this is-
something.
like Ankylosaurus is more like flat because he's got the arm. Like,
No,
arm
I
like
wasn't
that.
saying he was that one. That I was asking what Gouging Fire was based off because I do like that. I like Triceratops.
Raging Bolt is like the long neck one, right?
The Brontosaurus or whatever.
Brontosaurus.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we really
maybe
went on a crazy
full-time.
side tangent on this one. My bad, guys.
This is what we do on OHKO. I think
Yep.
this is what people come for. They don't care about the Sacramento results. They care about the dinosaur conversations.
How Ankylosaurus is
One of the very
articles.
first episodes, we had a very a big side tangent about dinosaurs.
Yes.
Actually, one of the very first episodes.
I got you guys.
So yeah, it all comes back around. But Stuttgart is next weekend. If we're talking about how they have screwed up dinosaurs over there, like that's how it's all transitioning. Let's go back to where it all started. It's somewhere over in Europe. So we'll then use that to talk about Stuttgart. Terrible transition. You know, we really tried. We really tried with that.
I'm gonna
one.
say, I don't know.
We really tried. We really tried.
Good answer.
Good answer. But yeah, there is a regional coming up. Joe is going. This is going to be the last Europe regional of this current regulation. And I'm curious with how it's going to go with the results from this event, obviously, and then as well as what's coming out of LAIC. Because you could say whatever, whichever, oh, look at, the West Coast, it's not going to be the same meta. But Marco got second at Gdansk with this Jumpluff Torkoal. Then he won LAIC with it. So I'm kind of curious then if the Europeans are going to be sticking to what they've been kind of doing, or if there's going to be adaptations kind of based off of that, or even to take inspiration from, not even just inspiration, but like to kind of more go towards more a little bit of what we got to see at Sacramento.
Can I make a prediction?
Yeah.
I'm just
we're just talking about Stuttgart in general, and I'll start the conversation here. My guy Sinistra is coming out on top. There's going to be a Sinistra team that wins in Stuttgart. So Joe, get ready because you can't sleep powder it. Sorry, it's 4 of the top 16 teams in Sacramento, including Alex Underhill, who was my backup pick behind Raghav. So like we actually did pretty well with our backup predictions here. You got top 8, I got top 16 on our backup predictions.
Who did you guess again?
I guessed Raghav, but my backup was Alex Underhill. So like we did better on our backup predictions, but I love Sinistra, especially on these Archaladon teams. Like Paul Ruiz had the the day 2 Sinistra team in LAIC, and then obviously Fevzi had that the like double beat up Sinistra team with Annihilate and Archaladon on it. So like I think Sinistra's is a really fun Pokemon. It like helps re-get multi-scale on Dragonite and like makes your Archaladon healthier again. So like that's gonna be my predictions, that Sinistra is gonna take home the title.
All right.
Are these like loose predictions or like?
I didn't think we were doing any predictions. I think we were.
I just felt it in the moment. I went with it. You just
felt it,
which is fine. Yeah, that's also like good answer. Proud of you. Just kind of talking in general. I know talking at the beginning before the episode if we were going to do official OHKO predictions for Stuttgart, because we don't always do them for European events, but Ugarte was very passionate that we did. So
you're welcome, OHKO fam. I got you guys.
Okay, so I think you've just decided for us that we are doing predictions.
I thought this was more of like I guess we will,
Come up with a prediction then, Joe.
Okay.
What's the question?
Each one of us picks a question and then we predict a winner.
Okay.
How about that?
Here we go.
Oh, we pick a winner off of the predictions, like for 3 people, basically. Is what you're saying?
No, that's actually
we're
not
gonna
what we're
have 3
saying.
prediction questions. We each pick a question, and then the 4th prediction question is who wins.
Is that like here was yours, and like here was what we were talking about, and you're just
maybe
like,
yeah. I mean that was a lot of information to process, unfortunately.
How? We each ask a question, and then the 4th question is who we think's going to win the event.
That's the only constant, is we always predict the winner. All the other prediction
I have a good prediction.
Which side tangent on that real fast before things. Still, like, I'm obviously, Joe, so sad that you lost finals, right? I would have loved for you to win that event. But since I had picked you for LAIC, even though I shouldn't have, because I wanted to pick Marco. No. I would have been right. I would have been right. Love always gets in the way. I would have been right. But instead, I picked you, which meant I couldn't pick you for Sacramento, which is when I actually wanted to pick you. Because there's the 3-event cooldown. Do you know how frustrated I would have been on this episode of OHKO if you had won the event and I wanted to predict you and I couldn't because I predicted you when I shouldn't have. That could have been 2 correct predictions. And yeah, it would have been devastating, but
Yeah, well,
you didn't
lucky for
win,
you, I'm
so
not good
I'm
enough to
sad,
win,
but
apparently, I guess.
I was
Yeah,
happy you
you're
lost because I
washed, you're
wasn't there,
washed.
if I'm being honest.
Oh, damn.
Because I
Oh.
want to
Yeah.
cast you winning a regional. I've never had that chance. We got
This is-
close in Louisville, bro.
We
We
did.
got
We did.
real close. We got 1 game away
Yeah.
from. I've been
Yeah.
waiting 5 years to cast you win a regional. We got
Yeah.
1 game away from it.
And then I sold, unfortunately.
Yeah, Joe messed it up for you. Way to go.
I have
Way to go. All
a.
right, we can get into our predictions now.
I have a
Sorry.
good one for you guys.
right.
Okay, are you ready? So,
Yes.
does Indeedee Mail break into the top 12 usage for Stuttgart Regionals?
Ooh.
I think yes.
Interesting.
I think yes. At 12. I think yes at 12.
Well, because Indeedee also won Gdansk, right? Or which team? Well, there was a regional that Indeedee
Oh, I'm
was
saying
on,
EDM
right?
for clarification.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. But I'm saying, wasn't there a European regional that?
It did win
Indeedee
Gdansk.
Mail?
It did win
Yeah,
Gdansk.
yeah. So they could like it over in Europe. They do. They, as Joe likes to say, they like to play a nice European game of Pokemon.
It wasn't Gdansk that it won because that was.
Or was it Lil? No, it was Lil. It was Lil. It was Lil.
I think it was Lil.
It was Lil. Because
Yeah,
Nil's Dunlop.
it was on Nils. Yeah, Nils won Lil.
More like Lil's Dunlop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right, I'm going to say no. The reason being, I just think whenever there's a Pokemon that has a split between types, that it just screws up the usage so much that I don't think we will see it. I think it'd be close, but I think it'll be just under, especially if we're already seeing things like both of the Ursalunas on the usage. I just don't think there'll be enough room to see it on a top 12. I would very reasonably see it at 13th or 14th, but I just don't think it'll quite make it at 12.
That's interesting because the reason I was hedging my bet was because, or why I think it will, is because you saw how Victor's team that got second place translated over and had so many plays at Sacramento, right? So in my brain, because Carson's team is a pretty good, consistent, strong team, it would carry over very well into EU. So that's why I think it's going to be on top 12.
See, I'm just looking back at, because there's always like the different regional metas and everything, right? So, Sacramento, of course, there was a lot of Indeedee. Indeedee had a fantastic rate and top cut and stuff. Didn't see it on the graphic. We did see both the bears, but like for Gdansk, for example, we only saw the Blood Moon Ursaluna on the usage. There was Annihilate there as well that is notably missing from Sacramento. Another big one, there was a lot of Volcarona that was able to pop off. It went from 17% to 27% on day 2 for Gdansk. And when you're talking at the regional differences, I just think there's going to be too many of those differences that put other Pokemon in like too high of usage. Like I think Volcarona will knock Indeedee off that chart, just simply put.
Yeah, my prediction would also be no. I also don't think it's going to be 13th. Like I think it's going to, obviously we'd have to look and see if it's not on the graphic where it falls, but remember, this is European Regional, Joe. So we got to get Porygon back on the graphic. We got to get Magmar and Electabuzz back on the graphic, right? We got to get Annihilate back on there. So those are four other Pokemon that
Porygon was not on the Gdansk.
That I would
good
predict
Pokemon
to have higher uses in Indeedee Mail, because while it is a good team, it is still an archetype that you kind of have to commit to, and they love their general balanced good stuffs over there, so you got to bring Electabuzz, Magmar, and Porygon back above Indeedee.
I'm a gambler. I'm gonna say yes anyways.
We know that you are. You love clicking sleep powder.
Yep. I'm so sorry to take us off topic of predictions.
Okay.
I have to get the story in before we move on. So, another one of the TCG casters, Swancho, it's his birthday coming up soon, right? And
shout out Swancho.
So he basically is going to Vegas for his birthday weekend, right? And I messaged him before I go to Sacramento. I'm like, hey, if I win Sacramento, I am going with you to Vegas to gamble, right? And he's like, okay, awesome, right? So last time we got to chat was in Top Cut, and I was like, hey man, like I'll see how it's going or whatever. But I feel so bad because I made it all the way to finals. He probably thought he was like, oh, he's following through. Like we're about to go to Vegas together. And then I just lost. I mean, granted, losing probably saved me more money than I lost from like actually like not getting 6K. So like, I guess it works out. But Juancho, if you're listening to this at all or you see this, I'm sorry I didn't follow through. I was so close.
We're on the topic of apologies. I'm also going to apologize to Suyo, who so graciously puts timestamps on the video every single week.
Suyo is our goat.
I am absolutely the goat. I am so sorry for all the side tangents because this one's going to be hellish to go through. And I'm so sorry for that, but you're the best. All
I
right.
apologize to absolutely nobody. Anyway,
Wow.
moving on.
Congrats on that. All right, next prediction. Something that we were talking about, missing from Sacramento Top Cut, Rillaboom.
Ooh.
That being said, that it was all chalked up to it's a West Coast regional, etc. So theoretically, it should be better for Stuttgart. What percentage do we think Rillaboom? We can even like have multiple because we have room for questions.
We have
What
the technology.
percentage? We have the technology. What percentage do we think Rillaboom is going to be at for day 2? And how many Rillabooms in top 8? Not top cut, top 8.
So just for everybody, Sierra sets the ground rules that we each ask one prediction question, and she comes out guns blazing and asks 2 predictions at once.
It's a banger. It's a because if we're talking about because Rillaboom 23% of the field, that's still a quarter of people that made it day 2, and then the conversion rate into top 8 was dog water.
Can we do day 1 instead? Because my question was going to revolve around a day 2 Pokemon.
Oh, okay. So okay. I guess it makes my question suck because who cares about day 1? It's like day 2.
No one cares about day 1, Joe.
You know what? We can just Rillaboom.
Oh, you don't care about the masses?
Joe Brown
you don't care about the general
fun.
You know the people
Joe
that go
Brown hates fun. The question will just simply be how many Rillabooms in top 8.
The people that go 2 and 6 are also important in this community, Joe. Just because you almost win every event doesn't mean that those people don't deserve representation.
I didn't even say anything.
I
was watching you guys fight. What?
You agreed with her that nobody cares about day 1.
No, this is like
day 1 is relevant.
This is like if 2 people are fist fighting and then one of the people just randomly walks over to one of the spectators and just like decks them in the face. Like, what was I doing here?
You were rooting for the other fighter.
Oh my goodness!
I think day 1 stats absolutely are an interesting or significant.
I think
conversation.
They're interesting. I think when the conversation is Rillaboomed, like it's only the day 2 was like one that really matters.
Fine, you can have your day 2. I'll ask my question with day 1.
Like I said, you already also criticized me for having 2 questions, so my bad. The question will simply just be how many Rillabooms in top 8?
4.
That's tough. That is tough because do we go with the European trend of balance or the Sacramento trend of only 2 Rillaboom in the top 20?
Yeah,
I'm gonna say I think it's on the decline, so I'm gonna say 2 Rillaboom.
Well, I can't pick 2.
I mean, you can.
That was actually the one I was going to pick, and I thought it was safe on my answer.
I don't care. I'll say 3 if you want to.
No, but this is where I'm if I only say 3 because no, if I say 2 because you said you'd back off, then I'd be upset if I didn't go 3. This is important.
You could also say 5.
Michael Their Best plays Rillaboom. All right, there's going to be 3 in top 8. I'll stick with 3.
We're gonna look silly when there's 7 Rillaboom. We'll be like, "Whoa!"
Well, I'm winning because I said 4, so I'm the closest.
You'd still be wrong.
I'm closest though.
So for context, Gdansk had 6 Rillaboom, and then the 2 non-Rillabooms was the Sinisha, and then a Jumpluff. So yeah,
we might be cooks here.
But Sacramento has 0, so I think 3 is good.
In other words, I'm right.
In other words, this is why in the theoretical fight you get punched.
Okay, that's fair. It's actually pretty fair.
All right, now I'll ask my prediction question revolving around Joe's boy Dragonite. And Dragonite had like really high usage at LAIC. It maintained most of it in Sacramento, but it was not as high as it was. Like LAIC was like 38% that were using Dragonite, and it went down to 28% and then 33, 34%, whatever, in Sacramento on day 2. So what is our Dragonite day 2 usage in Stuttgart?
That's easy. 35%.
Why is it easy? Did you see the future? You saw the timeline already?
I just know.
Well, I'm going to say 31%. I think it's strong. Simply put, I think 31's pretty safe. It was at 29 for day 2 of Gdansk. It was 33.7 day 2 of Sacramento. Split the difference. 31.
That's stressful.
Or 32. I forget which one I said.
I'll go more optimistic, more higher percentage there, because I feel like the field in Europe kind of centralizes a little bit higher than it does in America. I'll say 37%, because I feel like
Joe, I'm gonna be mad if you sniped that from me.
Well, okay, but you get 36, I get 37. You know, it's not like I didn't say 36.
All right. Okay.
Listen, you could be Sierra, who literally got prices righted by 0.1%, and then that was the only answer that Marcos got correct because he stole it from Sierra. So it could be way worse. I give you 2%,
and that actually stopped me from outright winning the LAIC predictions, and instead I tied for first.
That's tough.
So it could be worse, Joe.
Tragic. All right, then the one question that we always ask for each of these predictions, again, we have never gotten it correct. Who is going to win the entire event?
Joseph Ugarte.
No, that is our rule. If you're on the pod, anyone on the podcast in the predictions cannot give them, like, we've had Ashton, we've had Chuppa, we've had James Beck on.
Right.
They're not allowed to guess themselves.
All right, easy. Lucas Arabelli.
Ooh, he's world champion.
Is there a backup reason, or you're just say, hey, world champion, pretty good?
I just know. If it ain't me,
he did just know that 35.
You're being a bad podcast guest right now. Let's get some yap.
Okay. All right, I'll explain my logic, okay? World champion. This is Luca's first event back, all right? The king has been resting. He's ready for some VGC. He's famished. He has not gotten to enjoy any tasty, scrumptious regulation HVGC, and this is his one opportunity to play that nice European balanced VGC. He is going to take it, and he's going to win. If it's not Joseph Ugarte.
That's a fair pick. You want to go first? You want me to go? I don't want to snipe a pick from you, you know?
Honestly, if you sniped this pick, I would be flabbergasted. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're not saying Victor Medina, which is my prediction, which I don't think I've ever said Victor, so I don't think he's on my cooldown. It's hard with the European events. It's hard to do like a cooldown for those players because we forget who we predict in those. But I mean, he's gotten so close so many times. My boy's got to come through at this point.
No, that's a good answer. I was considering, but I was like, you know what, like, I want to go a little bit outside. So who I was going to say, I'm between two right now. That's where I'm debating. Is like I am in between
Alex Gomez and Eric Rios.
What?
I just thought of those two because like you were like I'm between two and like they're both the Spanish players. That was my guess, but apparently I was wrong because you said what?
No. I'm thinking back. So comment earlier. This is the one that stuck with me, and this is what I'm basing off of. Comment earlier that the team that Carson used to win the event was Oliver Eskelin's team swapping a Pokemon around. So with that being said, that I'm going to bet Oliver for winning the event.
Uh-oh.
Yes, Joe?
I think Oliver Eskelin got that version of the team from the Hoj brothers. So I don't know I don't know how that impacts your choice here. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that was the lore behind that team, but I'm not 100%.
Okay.
Nah,
much to ponder.
Stick with
much
it.
to ponder. No, but Hoach Brothers brought Dondozo Talonflame last time, and in your own words, Dondozo Tatsugiri can never win an event.
Oh no,
So
I got quoted.
I unfortunately I can't pick them.
no.
Yeah, they both bought it. Though notably with the Talonflame and like
The Ursaluna and the Indeedee and the Sneasler, they just messed up and had Dondozo Tatsugiri instead of Electabuzz and Incineroar. Yup.
Oh, getting tricky. All right, I'm gonna get my cat out of the closet and then I'll make it.
Okay, so so our audio listeners, Sierra has left the podcast. Her cat
He's
is
not allowed. He's not allowed in the closet.
Hello, Leon.
And he loves it in there.
Did he sign a
He loves
contract?
it. What?
Leon didn't sign. I'm his attorney right now. He didn't sign a contract, so he can't go in the closet. It's his world. We're just
This
living in it.
episode's been
That's
really
why- that's
unhinged,
why-
by the way.
That's why I'm not suing him.
This is what tends to happen on OHKO, Joe.
Yes.
You should be used to it by now.
Man.
Sorry, did I ruin your pick for you?
Yeah, I'm very torn. I'm still gonna say Oliver because I don't want to pick between the brothers. I'll pick the wrong one. And then I'd feel bad. I was also considering picking Sanvi, but Sanvi rolled up last event with Como Grimmsnarl, so like I can't in good conscience.
Oh
Like,
my goodness. Yo,
Wow.
Sammy, you
Well-
gotta get off of that. You hear
The
that?
Samby's dry.
well, like way more of an accomplished player than I am, so like that's like the team works for him,
Listen,
right?
after the LASC debacle of believing in Joe, you got to trust your gut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
That's
your gut
true.
would have
Joe's
got
trying
you the Marco pick.
Joe's trying to throw me. Oh, you're so right. You're so right. We're going
Whoa,
to follow
whoa, hold on.
there is a part of me too
Whoa.
that wanted to. There is a part of me that wanted to bet Michael if he actually is bringing a new team, but we don't.
Joe's
know,
trying to get me in trouble here. What's going on? Like,
yeah, Oliver Eskelin is my final answer.
All right.
okay, so our final guesses were who did I say again? Oh yeah. Lucas Arabelli.
Yeah.
Who did you say, Joe?
Medina.
Okay, Victor Medina, and then Oliver Eskelin. Okay, makes sense.
All right. So we're gonna end it. We're gonna end the podcast here, Sierra. But we do have to do our question of the week. So if you want to look in the Discord real quick, I'm between two questions. So one is from Fendi G and one is from Koto7068. So which of those two? Only one of them gets chosen for the question of the week. Which one do you think is better?
We'll say from Fendi.
Okay.
So Fendi G asks, what format, if you were to bring it to current day and the current popularity, do you believe would not age like wine? And which ones do you think would? I think this is definitely a fun, like this one's a little bit more out for me, but I think for you two, this would be fun, more so to talk about, especially too, like there's definitely a big thing with like VGC players that you don't know how good something is till it's gone, but also there's formats that people fought in that they thought were fine at the time. And now you look back and it's like, oh no, like this did not age like a fine wine, right? So
I got a good one already.
It's tough. You have it in both directions?
I know the worst one that would age like horribly.
Go for it.
2009, 100%. 2009 VGC would be horrible nowadays. Like
now, are you including that we would still have no team preview? Like we wouldn't have any modern.
That's
inventions?
a great nuance, actually. That's a great nuance. So, Sierra, I have a question for you. Are we including rules and stipulations included in those format? Like, for example, 2009 had closed team sheet, no team preview, right? Explosion had like double the base power because it had defense. Like, it was just a bunch of ridiculous like mechanics.
I mean, that can also be the discussion, like whether you guys.
The other discussion too is what do we do? I always harp on dynamic speed, but what do we do with dynamic speed? Like the reason that Mega Metagross wasn't S tier in 2015 and became phenomenal in 2018 was because in Gen 6 you had to protect and Mega Evolve to get the speed. Where in Gen 7, as you Mega'd, you got the 110 speed. But still, neither of those pale in comparison to dynamic speed. So, like, are we playing a previous format in Scarlet and Violet? Like, not using Terastallization, obviously. Like, we're using modern mechanics, or are we just breaking our Nintendo DS's back out and playing it competitively again?
Okay, because I think it's more interesting if it's modern mechanics, because it's not really an interesting question if you're because like then there's no change, right? So I feel like for the stipulations, we should say with modern mechanics, save terrestrialization, right?
Right.
So like
you still
matching
use
whatever the
that
mechanics
generation's
was.
gimmick,
Yeah.
but it's with modern mechanics. Like can't paralyze the electric types, can't burn, fire types, and dynamic speed.
Okay, then I need to think for a second because.
So my answer would be 2011, right? Because that was the first Gen 5 year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That would be the one that would age the worst to me specifically, because there were only 150 Pokemon available, and I think it would be really stale, especially because not a lot of those Pokemon were good. They were, talk to Len, talk to Evan, talk to Scott, like, they were using some really crappy Pokemon just because it's all they had access to in that Pokedex. So I think if we were to play that today for a whole year, I think people would be pretty frustrated with it.
Because I was gonna say that a lot of those crappy Pokemon technically got better in Scarlet and Violet because they got more moves and they have actual abilities. Like for example, like Scrafty didn't even have Intimidate back then. I'm pretty sure it was like Moxie.
Right.
Like it was Moxie's Crafty. Like that was your Incineroar at home. Like no Intimidate and no like no anything. So like I think, but yeah, it'd probably still age kind of poorly, I guess. Yeah, because it's just so limited.
It's just such a limited dex.
I think then I'm gonna switch my answer. I think 2009 would age phenomenally with the stipulation that all the mechanics now match the current format. Because I think it would actually be a kind of interesting format. Although actually now that I think about it, the grassroots format BDSP VGC got kind of boring quickly, so I take back that answer. And in fact, I say the one that would have aged well is 2016 because there's no Dark Void Smeargle. There's no Dark Void Smeargle. No, Dark Void Smeargle's gone. Right? There are more items. But there are more items now. Right, and there are actual better like moves and checks to stuff like Xerneas. Like there are actual like moves that are added into the game.
But King Gambit's not a check. It's not in that format. You're not using King Gambit to counter Xerneas. You still have to use Bisharp. like so. It's like just because.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
we're not counting evolutions, really. Like we're not.
Of course not,
dude. Because then you're just making it current, like regular.
You're making your own Frankenstein format. Ridiculous answer. 2016.
Okay. You guys think of stuff. I need to think.
All right. So the one that I always think of, which is not even just like, I don't think would age well for this, but I don't think ever, and I also think was really just kind of at the time was, and I have very limited experience, right, with the game, so mine is a more current answer, but Series 6 of Sword and Shield, God. When it was the ban the top 10 Pokemon, because it just got stupid. And I didn't realize how bad it was at the time, because I was a pretty casual player.
Oh my God.
But it just really it wasn't fun.
That format was so bad.
It didn't age well in the moment. It's not like people liked it and now we're saying if we played it again we would go back and not like it. Like people didn't like it in the moment.
No, but like the reason I bring that up, first off, like I said, I have a lot less experience. I started Series 5 of Sword and Shield. Yeah. So I got very limited things that I can pull from like what I can actually speak of. But I think where the answer is actually interesting is people will see the top 12 Pokemon that we have, and they're like, Incineroar usage is too high. Rillaboom usage is too high. We should ban these Pokemon. So despite the fact that people that played competitively throughout Series 6 know that it wasn't good, there is a lot of people who either didn't play it to enough of a level, or have started playing like more recently, or just don't understand that it wasn't good, and still want a similar ban system to happen. And I think that format is a good indication of why it shouldn't, and it's not something that enough people know about. So
now if we have to be positive on the ones that we talked about what would age poorly, but what's the format if we went back and played it now, everybody would still give it its flowers.
I miss Reg C.
But that's like not an old format. That we had that.
Dude, I only started playing Series 5 of Sword and Shield. What do you want me to say? Series 7? Which one? Which time we played it? The first or the second time?
Hold on. hold on. I have dissed my boy Ugarte a fair share in this podcast, so let me defend him for a second. You know, you are a conscious living human breathing human being. You have the thoughts, you have the capacity to understand what the prior formats were. So
I don't
even
know
if
what
you
they
hold
were.
on.
I
Even
don't
if
know
you
what they
didn't
were.
play 2017, you're aware that 2017 and Gen 7 had Z moves, so you could
Barely. I don't know what they do.
think that maybe Z moves would be fun in the modern era.
But I don't know that. I could also think Dark Void Smeargle's fun because I've never played it. I could also be like Joe and think that Xerneas could be fun because I haven't played it.
Well,
Like
he's
I don't
crazy.
know these
Joe, don't listen to
formats.
him. He's out of his mind.
I don't know the formats. I didn't play them. I don't play them, and I will not go back and play them.
Okay.
You know?
I have my answer finally. I thought about it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Criticized for not being old head. That's crazy.
No, I'm saying you can think. Just come up with an idea. Say it might be fun to do Z moves again. Might be fun to do Dragon Gem again. Normal Gem,
I
Flying
heard
Gem.
the Gem era sucked.
Well, ask the old heads. If you think I'm an old head, ask the old heads. They love the gems for no reason.
Okay. So I thought about this, right? And I was thinking like, okay, so in what formats would like certain items make Pokemon obnoxious, right? Like absolutely obnoxious, like annoying to play versus, right? And then I thought back to Chansey Shuckle back in the day, right?
Oof.
And I was like, man, if Shuckle had like a covert cloak or something, or like there were just random covert cloaks on best of one ladder, or like even just in a format where there's just random clear amulets in some places, right? I would probably say the format that would age the worst due to that would probably be 2017. And the reason why I specifically say 2017 is because the entire like reason why that format, like people liked it, was because the pacing of the game, the way the pinch berries, well, people actually didn't really like pinch berries, but like that's what made 2017, right? Like pinch berries, and then you had like no dynamic speed, so like certain things were better because of that, right? They might be worse now because of no dynamic speed, right? So I think 2017 would probably age the worst. I think in contrary to this, 2018 would probably age the best.
That's my answer.
Because your need of pinch berries was way lower in that format. There's Z moves, there's megas, right? And I think all the new items would add something interesting to the format. Like for example, a Jetpack Torkoal and Jumpluff would be viable in 2018. Very interesting.
Right, and also, if you just having Clear Amulet existing, which again, this is breaking our rules, which like we're saying modern mechanics, not modern items, but Joe just wants to have his.
It's a mechanic. An item is technically part of a mechanic.
No, absolutely not. We're not having this conversation. There's neither here nor there.
Pokemon is technically a mechanic.
Yeah.
Technically, Neural Force is a mechanic. So what I think about 2018 is to me that's my favorite national Dex format that we've had. Because like you mentioned, having access to megas and Z moves and a lot of stuff. I also think 2019 would be pretty good. That's probably like the most fun if we're talking like Ultra Series. That is the time where we have had the most stuff available to us ever, because we had 2 restricteds and a mega and a Z move and all these things. This
so
is
like
true.
2019 again, like revived with dynamic speed and all the other innovations of the games. I think it would work. But 2018 to me, that's my favorite national Dex format. I think if we just went back to that now with dynamic speed to help out some of those slower mega Pokemon or some of those other threatening Pokemon that just needed a little bit more speed to handle the 130 speed Tapu Koko or the Choice Scarf Tapu Leles or anything, I think 2018 probably ages the best.
You know what? Bring back Series 5 of Sword and Shield.
Is that the Urshifu, the first Urshifu one, or no?
No.
The Isle of Armor.
No, Urshifu
It
was
was. Oh, just kidding.
That's why I'm like
Casanti won. Casanti won with Urshifu, Dragapult, Colossal.
The Urshifu Regieleki DLC.
I just used Cinderace. I don't know. Tailwind Cinderace.
I think you're thinking
Dynamax
of. Aren't you thinking of Series 4?
Well, no, I didn't play good teams in Series 5 or in Series 6.
Yeah, I feel like Cinderace was viable. I feel like I remember that.
Oh yeah, this was before we got to know each other, and then I made Sierra play good teams.
Yeah, I missed the bad teams day. I had a lot of fun with the game then.
Bro.
Now I have to like. Then Joe taught me balance. Then I was like, well, now I have to do the switch, and then I have to switch out, and now I do like the parting shot, and now I switch in, and then now
Imagine if Talonflame still had old Gale Wings.
That'd be pretty epic.
That'd be pretty awesome.
That'd be pretty epic.
Sierra, if you're unaware,
this post brought to you by Talonflame Gang.
If you're unaware, Talonflame used to have priority on all flying attacks, regardless of its HP.
That I did know. I love Talonflame, so I'm okay with that. Talonflame was my Tailwind setter from my Cinderace team.
Well, there you go.
Actually, no. Talonflame's lame with infinite Gale Wings. I hate it. It's not allowed.
No, 2014
because it
was
would
great.
mess up your Jumpluff Torkoal.
Yep.
Cool. Glad we established that.
Understandable.
All right. Anything else for this episode of the podcast before we start fighting about nitty Pokemon stuff again?
I just want to say I'm so thankful to the two of you here on this Thanksgiving broadcast. And thankful to the OHKO community. We're trying to build a community here. We try to, for the most part, get a weekly episode out with like a 93% success rate over the last year and a half, I'd say. And, thankful to all the people that come up to us at events and stuff and, show us some love, show support. And I think it's a pretty cool adventure that we're on. So I'm thankful to be here.
I'm thankful for you guys having me on the podcast again. And I'm thankful to be friends with two awesome people such as yourselves.
I'm so glad we're friends.
Okay, we're probably a little bit more than friends, but that's you could have let me.
You got friend zoned live on recording.
Tried to be nice. All right, I tried to be nice.
That's crazy.
I'm not grateful for nothing.
Right. It is always funny when Joe says, "Oh," in like the thank you parts. I always bring it up that he's like, "Oh, my girlfriend and Sierra," and I'm like. Every time I'm like, wait, he's thanking his girlfriend and he's thanking Sierra? What is there some drama I'm missing?
Yep, you got me.
No,
Jumpluff.
He's thanking his girlfriend Jumpluff.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, my thanks was a month ago because
we
Canadian
missed
Thanksgiving.
It, yep.
But I'm thankful for Pokemon because without Pokemon, none of this would happen. So, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Pikachu. Pretty dope. Pretty awesome of you. But for real, final thing we're thankful for. Actually, two final things. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I know this is not your first appearance on the podcast, but Joe UX9 on all socials if you're interested in following Joe in his journey, especially to cheer him on for Stuttgart. And most finally, we're thankful for all of you getting to this point in this episode. I might co-stream the event. Joe Brown, are you going to co-stream Stuttgart?
No, because I'm commentating the finals of that League of Legends league I'm in this weekend. So shout outs I'll post it on Twitter to SDC League, Seasonal Draft Championship League. The finals are this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So I'll be unavailable.
So have both open. Make sure you're cheering Joe Brown on, and there'll be a regional. So I hope you enjoy watching that. If you're traveling to it, safe travels, best of luck, and we'll see you next week for the next episode of OHKO. So take care. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Bye-bye.